Is it time?
It is time for us to do what we have been doing, and that time is every day.
We'll know in a very short period of time, but it looks like it could be something that will be not good. believe me, not good.
I see issue with that. And again, hey.
You're not going to be able to insult your way to the presidency. That's not going to happen.
I don't know who created Pokemon Go, but I'm trying to figure out how we get them to have Pokemon go to the polls.
I'm Ted Cruz, and my pronoun is kiss my ass.
So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time in terms of what we need to do to lay these wires, what we need to do to create these jobs.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to put him.
Not good. Believe me, not good.
Hello, dissidents. Welcome one and all to a Thursday midday edition of the Do Dissidents podcast. Keaton Weiss here with Russell Dobular, of course.
Hello.
Thank you, everybody, very much for being here today. Appreciate you all, as always. We have a big crowd in here to start things off. 973 on YouTube, 359 over in the Rumble chat. So please do hit that like button and please do hit that subscribe button over here for the early show. Don't want to waste much time. We do want to jump right in. Russell, do you want to announce your trip now or reveal details later?
I don't know. What do you think?
Oh, why don't we do it?
Yeah. Well, I guess stick it at the top, no?
Why not? Go ahead.
Just get it out of the way. All right. So I've been talking about this forever, and whenever I mention it, we get emails from viewers from around the world. Yo, I live there. I'll hook you up. So I finally booked it. In January, I am flying out to Bangkok, and the plan as of now, of course, it's flexible. It's one of the beauties of having no responsibilities, unlike my dear partner there. I can pretty much come and go as I please. The plan is to travel that part of the world basically through May. So Thailand, Laos, Cambodia, Vietnam, obviously China. That's really the whole point of the trip. And really, I feel like, I as a great man, Douglas Murray once said, "You've never been."
That's right.
You've never been. We talk a lot about China, and you can.
Never been.
He's never been. You can figure certain things out without going. I feel like I got to go to that part of the world generally, China specifically, where I go see my long-suffering ex-wife there in Australia, and then come back. Maybe take a side trip to Japan, which I know a couple of Americans who emigrated to Japan who live there.
I thought you were going to say, and then maybe come back.
And then maybe come. Oh, well, we'll see, Matt. Look,
we'll see.
In these times, like, does it run through your head if you're planning on leaving the country for 5 months that it might not be here for you to come back to? Yes, it does. I mean, I'd be lying if I said that didn't occur to me.
No, of course. I mean,
but
obviously.
Whatever. So look, if you live in those places, drop us an email. I'll have Jake start keeping a file. I'll definitely, like, in major hubs in these places, like Bangkok, like Hanoi, I'll pick a place maybe for people who watch the show in that part of the world to come and hang out one night.
There we go. All right. Excellent. All right. Well, folks, up to 1276 now in the YouTube chat and 437 over on Rumble. So please do hit that like button. Thank you all very much for being here. All right. So we're going to get right into things. Obviously, the news yesterday, almost to the exclusion of everything else, Charlie Kirk assassinated at university event in Utah. Now, I just took this from the live updates, so this is the most recent as of this morning. Authorities say conservative activist Charlie Kirk was killed by a single shot in an apparent targeted attack during an outdoor event Wednesday at Utah Valley University. Kirk co-founded the conservative youth organization Turning Point USA and was a close ally of President Trump. This is a dark day for our state. It is a tragic day for our nation, said Utah Governor Spencer Cox. I want to be very clear. this is a political assassination. Authorities are seeking a new person of interest in the shooting and have no one in custody as of late Wednesday, according to a law enforcement official familiar with the matter, who was not authorized to discuss the situation by name and spoke on condition of anonymity. The shooting comes amid a spike in attacks on political figures in the United States across all parts of the ideological spectrum. The victim, 31-year-old Kirk, personified the pugnacious populist conservatism that has taken over the Republican Party in the age of Trump. He launched his organization, Turning Point USA, in 2012, targeting younger people and venturing onto liberal-leaning college campuses where many GOP activists were nervous to engage. The shooter, we're going to have more on the dynamics of this in the next segment, but we should, give you some backstory here. The shooter wore dark clothing and fired from a roof on campus some distance away, Utah authorities say. FBI Director Kash Patel, who earlier in the day posted on social media that a subject had been taken into custody, later wrote the person had been released after being questioned. So as of this stream, the shooter is still free and at large. Kirk was speaking at a debate hosted by TPUSA. The event at UVU had been met with divided opinions on campus. An online petition calling for university administrators to bar Kirk from appearing received nearly 1,000 signatures. The university issued a statement last week citing First Amendment rights and affirming its commitment to free speech, intellectual inquiry, and constructive dialogue. Okay, so we're going to go through what I think about this and some of the reactions to this. First of all, I do condemn this act wholeheartedly, unreservedly, without hesitation or equivocation. The most profound way in which becoming a parent affects you is that whenever you start spiraling and catastrophizing about what if the worst happens to me and I'm disappeared or kidnapped or jailed or even killed, God forbid, is that your mind immediately goes not to how such a tragedy will affect you, meaning me in this example, but how it'll affect your kids. How will they carry on? How will they deal with this? Will they be okay? And those thoughts are the scariest thoughts in the world. Certainly the scariest thoughts that I've ever faced. Parenthood is both liberating and terrifying in that sense. It's liberating in the sense that you're no longer the center of your own life, which is freeing in a way, because you would, without a second's hesitation, give your own life to save your kids, right? So there is something freeing about that. But the flip side of that, of course, is that your main responsibility in life now is to care for another person whose fate, no matter how much you try to protect them, is ultimately beyond your control. That's a very scary feeling. Parents often describe it as watching their kids walk around as like watching your heart beat outside of your own chest, right? It's freeing and terrifying at the same time. And so when I saw the video of the bullet hit Charlie's neck, my first thought was of his two young children, particularly the older one. Here she is on the set of Fox News with him. They obviously shot these videos at angles to show us not to reveal her face, but here she is.
Right.
And so I mean this very sincerely when I say that it is torture, actual torture, to put myself in her shoes and think of, what she must be going through now. And I know a lot of Charlie's peers in the space, like Glenn Beck, Megyn Kelly, Jack Posobiec, Benny Johnson, are parents themselves, and I know they're feeling that same pain for his kids, as I am. Many of them have probably met his kids, so I'm sure it cuts a lot deeper and hits a lot harder. And she's going to be going through this for quite some time, likely the rest of her life in some way, shape, or form. I don't think this is a scar that ever fully heals. And as a parent, that is just absolute torture to think about. Now, here's the thing. I felt that exact same sense of torture just about every day for these past 2 years, watching image after image, video after video of not just boys and girls, sons and daughters being butchered in Gaza, but also mothers and fathers as well, and imagining what it's doing to their kids. There was one video I saw fairly recently of two young boys in a hollowed out building crying with each other as the sound of explosions boomed behind them. And they had no adults in their lives to comfort them. They were just left to comfort each other. That's torture. It's torture to see that. It's torture to think about that. It's been torture to see these things for the past couple of years. It's also torture as a parent to think of the terror in the hearts of these little kids whose parents have been disappeared in ICE raids, some of whom shipped off to a torture dungeon, speaking of torture, in El Salvador, where they're told by the guards upon their arrival that they'll spend the rest of their lives there and they'll never come out. It's torture to think of the pain of black children whose fathers have been killed by the police. All of that's torture. And based on his life's work, I think it is safe to assume that Charlie Kirk felt no such empathy for any of those groups of children that I just mentioned or their families. In fact, here is Charlie Kirk, now famously saying that he can't stand the word empathy. Let's take a listen.
Actually, I think empathy is I can't stand the word empathy. Actually, I think empathy is a made-up New Age term that does a lot of damage. But
empathy is a made-up New Age term. He can't stand the word empathy. So Kirk, as we know, repeatedly defended Israel's genocidal campaign in Gaza. He gleefully cheered on these ICE roundups. And, of course, famously called George Floyd a scumbag in his 2021 visit to Minnesota. Right-wing celeb Charlie Kirk thinks George Floyd is a scumbag. And let's read a little bit of this article. Right-wing celebrity Charlie Kirk opened his appearance in Mankato Tuesday night by giving the crowd some advice. Just don't totally mess up this state. It was built by wonderful Scandinavians, and it seems as if it's being destroyed now, rather intentionally. Wonderful Scandinavians. In an 80-some minute speech, Kirk called George Floyd a scumbag, railed against the urban areas, especially Minneapolis, which is not the town it used to be, and seemingly referenced January 6th while lamenting how if you dare walk into the U.S. Capitol building and take a selfie, they'll put you in solitary confinement. I'll, of course, remind everyone George Floyd also had a 6-year-old daughter at the time that he was killed. Charlie Kirk and the rest of the MAGA influencers in his space spent the last week clearly attempting to stoke racial tensions after the horrible killing in Charlotte, North Carolina. Their solutions are the standard conservative playbook solutions: more jails, harsher sentences, a bigger and tougher and more draconian police state. They cite per capita statistics to try and convince people that black people are more dangerous than white people, never paying any thought to the possibility that this dynamic could be the result of the dismantling of the black family at the hands of that very police state. In this context, thinking about the 90s crime bill passed and advocated by Democrats. Not saying this is all a partisan thing, obviously, but these Gen Z people now, these millennial black criminals now, as they like to repeat at the top of their lungs, these are the children of the crime bill. You know, I went to school in a majority minority district. It was a magnet program. So the schools were quoted to be a third black, a third brown, and a third white because the district was very big. It encompassed both the largely black and brown inner city of Newburgh and then the mostly white suburbs where I lived. And so when I went to school, we were all minorities. There was no majority race in any of the schools I went to as a kid. And I noticed that half the black kids I went to school with used the word grandma the way I use the word mom. They would talk about their grandma when they went home. Oh, my grandma's going to kill me when I got home. Oh, my grandma's not letting me out of the house today. And it always struck me as kind of strange that they would refer to their grandmas all the time. But growing up and learning about the world and learning about the politics of that time, it's pretty obvious why they mentioned their grandmas over and over again. And I came to learn this about a few kids in particular who I knew, that their dads were in jail. Their dads were in jail because Joe Biden and Bill Clinton locked their dads in jail, and their moms had to work 2 or 3 jobs to make ends meet. So when they got home from school, it was their grandma who was home.
Yeah.
To take
Well,
care of them.
just to interject, they want to blame the Great Society.
Right. Of course. Yeah. Not the erection of the police apparatus itself. And so maybe this generation of black men carry the trauma that kind of instability brings. I knew when I was a kid, I had friends whose parents were teachers who would hear stories from kids in the inner city about abusive boyfriend after abusive boyfriend coming into the house because the father wasn't there. The father was in prison. And, that creates tremendous trauma and creates a culture of violence, which afflicts this entire country. And so the way we do things in America, broadly speaking, traumatizes children and families. And what has always offended me the most about these MAGA influencers, and I've talked about this a lot on the show, Charlie Kirk, Jack Posobiec, Benny Johnson, etc., is that they rake in tremendous amounts of money promoting a family values brand while at the same time gleefully cheering on policies and programs that destroy children and families. I know Benny Johnson feels the pain of the Kirk children now. I know he does. He's a dad himself. He knew Charlie. And from one dad to another, I can say that I do respect that grief and that sadness and that fear, all of it. I would plead to him, likely in vain, but it's worth a try in a moment like this, to remember how you feel now in this moment for Charlie's kids. And remember that before you go out and hawk more merchandise from whatever the next theme park ice jail is, and think that the kids of the people in that jail are feeling just as lost, just as terrified, just as paralyzed by their parent having disappeared without explanation and for an indefinite period of time. And more broadly, I think it's a good starting point moving forward for us to agree to try and create a society that traumatizes as few children as possible. And yes, it is impossible to talk about that without talking about the problem of gun violence, of course. So here is Charlie Kirk, now in a famous video saying we have to accept a certain amount of gun violence for the sake of protecting the Second Amendment.
A cost of, unfortunately, some gun deaths every single year so that we can have the Second Amendment to protect our other God-given rights. That is a prudent deal. It is rational.
Yep. So, in fact, just yesterday, as this news was breaking, so was news of yet another school shooting in Colorado. The murder rate, if that murder rate of a city, if the murder rate of an American city is 10 out of every 100,000 people, that's considered bad. A murder rate of 10 out of 100,000. 20 is alarming. 30 is extreme. 40 out of 100,000 is out of control. As a percentage, how many American children do you think experience a school shooting in their lives? Well, the answer, 51 out of 100,000. Now, to be clear, that is not 51 deaths per 100,000, but that is 51 children out of every 100,000 live through a school shooting. My twin 6-year-olds just learned a mass shooter drill in school yesterday. They don't know what violence is, not really. They're blessed. They don't live in Gaza, so they don't know what violence is yet. But yesterday, they learned what to do if a maniac comes into the school and starts shooting. So 51 out of every 100,000 students in this country will experience a school shooting. That is the culture of violence that we have created. And as I mentioned, both parties have dirty hands in this, of course. But are these right-wing influencers particularly complicit in creating that culture of violence? Of course they are. Of course they are. And so just closing thoughts on the reactions to this horrific event before we get into some speculation about the event itself, because I do think, of course, there's a lot more than meets the eye going on here, and I have my suspicions, as I always do. But the last thoughts on this is that I do, of course, respect and sympathize with the grief that all of Charlie's friends and family are feeling now, and peers. And I beg of them to take a moment to see if they can find it somewhere in themselves to realize how the world they have advocated for has bred this culture of violence, and to take a step back from the brink. And I know what they're going to say. I know what the response, especially on the ICE shit. Well, they come here and commit crimes. Yeah, 80% of people agree that illegal immigrants who come here and commit violent crimes against Americans need to be detained and deported in order to protect other individuals and families from falling victim to violent crime. Black bagging day laborers at Home Depot parking lots does not accomplish that. All that accomplishes is further traumatizing children and families and breeding a culture of violence. And same goes for their attitudes towards Palestine. Same goes to their attitudes towards policing, towards black men in general, quite frankly, who they like to fearmonger about as much as they possibly can. Same goes for all of these culture war causes du jour. So, if you want this to stop, I would say we all need to try and do better. But that really does need to start with the MAGAsphere, because I have never seen a group of prominent media people take such joy in the suffering of others as I have seen the likes of Benny, Jack, Gunther, and yes, Charlie. And so my heart does legitimately and honestly weep for his children. And I hope that Charlie's friends now can find it in themselves to shed a tear for other people's children, including all these groups I mentioned, who they have taken in a lot of money inflicting pain upon. And if they can do that, maybe they'll come out a little better on the other side, and maybe all of us will. So that's what I have to say about that.
Very well said. Were you going to show anything of the account responses?
No, I don't have any of that. No.
No.
Okay. I figured that would go on long enough.
Yes. All right. Well, nicely done, my friend. So going back, I didn't want to break your flow. So first of all, this thing, and we talked about covering it before this happened with Charlie Kirk. The way they really used this tragic stabbing in North Carolina to cross one of the last lines left and just openly argue black men are violent without any euphemism, without slipping it into something else, without hanging it on a particular person like George Floyd. They just came out with it. Benny in the closet did a whole monologue trying to argue that. Now, and I also mentioned, they want to blame the Great Society, and they don't want to talk about mass incarceration. Both of those things came into being around the same time, because with mass incarceration is really born with the war on drugs, right around the same time as the welfare state. They're born together. Now, I have my own criticisms of the welfare state. I think there are valid criticisms of it as creating a culture of dependency. We just interviewed Chairman Yeshitela for 9 hours. He has very much that critique, but his answer to that is not a libertarian hellscape where every person is for themselves. It's a culture of self-sufficiency where people cooperate together to make a better world for their group instead of as isolated individuals. Now, when you can't critique the economic system, when you can't ideologically, it's your brand, it's your bread and butter not to critique it, you can only talk about culture. You can only talk about that. Now, I can tell you, as somebody who grew up poor and white, a lot of the dysfunctions that they're attributing to black culture, these are the dysfunctions of poverty.
Right.
The same things that you will see in a poor black neighborhood, where if you grew up in a neighborhood like that, a lot of people you came up with will have been to prison. You'll probably have taken some arrests yourself. In my case, I went to jail a lot, never had the misfortune to act, and wasn't like a serious enough criminal to wind up in prison. But yeah, I got arrested a lot. You get treated differently when you're from a certain class. And this is something that poor white people have to understand too. That on steroids is what happens to black people. You know how you're going to get treated different by the cops if you look like you're slummy than if you were dressed in a Brooks Brothers suit. Yeah, okay, so take that 10 times past that, and that's what it is to be poor and black. It's not that being poor and white. I lived it. Yeah, man. There is class discrimination that you will experience. A lot of people I came up with, it's self-deleted. These are not things that are common if you grow up in a prosperous suburb. These things really boil down to class. For people who are not white, you have racism thrown on top of that. But anybody who's driven around this country, which all of these influencers have, you go through those Jerry Springer kind of areas, man. They had a whole show, the Jerry Springer show, that showed white people with the dysfunctions of poverty for sport to make fun of them, really.
Right.
But yeah, man, that is what happens when people are poor, when people are desperate. They fall subject to violence. They take out on each other. That was my experience. They take out on each other the anger they actually have towards the people above them that they don't have an outlet to express. So they wind up getting violent at a bar with each other, taking it out on each other. Substance abuse. So many more people that I grew up with died of cancer than people I went to college with. Like, much more common, because not only the drinking and the prevalence of cigarettes, but a lot of them wind up working in construction where you're breathing all kinds of shit and dangerous chemicals, man. These are the disposable people in society. This is something that these people, by definition, cannot address. It's not their lane. What's really grotesque, and I don't just say this about them, this is the whole influencer space, commentator space of all ideologies. Most of these people are in it to make as much money as possible. And the crazier the take, the more extreme the take, the better it is for your bottom line. Those takes draw eyeballs. And the more divisive, the more us versus them. You see it on the other side. Yeah, you know, with the libs, they love to own the MAGA, right? They love cultural provocations that are going to get them angry, right? They love that. And on the other side, they love that too. If you're involved in creating a culture like that, whatever your ideology, sooner or later the chickens are going to come home to roost. If you're constantly keeping a pot on a hot stove right at a simmer, it's going to boil over, man. You can't keep telling people the other person in your country is an existential threat to you and not have some people take that to a horrible place. And you got to remember, most of these people are about as authentic as a WWE wrestler. They're playing a fucking role. I saw Alex Jones tweet out, this is why this happened to Charlie Kirk, and it was him talking about family values. Do you really? I mean, I know you'll get into that on the other side, but does Alex Jones believe that? Do we believe that Alex Jones really believes that? He's playing a fucking character. There's a saying in acting, you have to be smart to play stupid. In other words, if you're really stupid, you're not going to get where the joke is, right? So Marilyn Monroe had to be smart to play a dumb blonde as effectively as she did. You look at someone like Gunther Eagleman, who immediately tweeted out, they declared war. You got to be smart to be that stupid, to play that stupid, to present as that stupid, because he understands who his audience is, and he understands what they want to hear from him in that moment. And he does not at all care about people who are not him, who are going to read that framing, accept that framing, and maybe do something. He's not going to jail.
Of course.
He's not going to jail. I mean, they're not going to shoot him, right? He's not going to be the one to be the victim of that violence. So yeah, your plea for people to turn down the temperature, maybe do some reflecting, is well taken and appropriate. They're not going to do it because it's what Upton Sinclair said in The Jungle. Paraphrasing a bit, but in essence, a man has a tremendous capacity not to see a thing when his living depends upon his not seeing it. What are these guys going to do? Go get a real job? They're not. Most of them are not smart or talented enough to become real journalists, to write real books, to do real research. This is it. All they got is hot takes and provocations, which Charlie Kirk, and I am with you. I don't support this action in any way. It is not, even if you are somebody who believes that, revolutions rely on a certain amount of non-pacifistic activity, we'll call it. Even if you believe that, this kind of, even the communists don't believe in this kind of thing. Like just random violence like this, nothing is going to be accomplished that way. They have guns too.
It'll create civil war and fascism. That is what it ushers in.
That is all you're going to get. There's no message. There's no organization. There's no political project. This is emphatically, this is not the way. And all people who sit in front of a mic or sit in front of X, of all political persuasions, should think about what they put out into the world, because quite a few do pick the lane of the other is inhuman as the default because it's what their audience wants to hear. It's the best thing for their bottom line.
Yes. And it's not a game, as we learned very harshly yesterday. And so, yes, I think that is well said. And to your point about the culture, this exhibit I did save for the very end. There was a vigil for Charlie Kirk that was disrupted by, somebody says the leftist, somebody says it's BLM, who rolls through and screams Charlie Kirk sucks. This guy's gonna get fucked. And then obviously a brawl breaks out. This is only going one way, the wrong way. And I put this here as sort of a segue and a teaser into the next segment. It'll be clipped separately. But assuming this was a professional hit, which I absolutely believe it was, whoever did it was looking for this kind of reaction, was looking for vigils disrupted by protesters, disrupted by more violence and chaos, and they're winning. They're winning. This is what they want. And it feels pretty hopeless, but we got to do what we can to make it not as hopeless as it looks. All right, let's take some super chats and some Rumble rants, and then we will go on to part 2 of this Charlie Kirk coverage. Let's take a look at what we got here in the Rumble side. Sorry, almost there. Okay. China Shill says, I heard he had enough fentanyl in his system to kill an elephant. We should wait for the toxicology report before we come to conclusions. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to feel bad for him, but I do, like I said what I said. Hey, dirtbags, it's probably crazy to think that there's some kind of top-down Saturn death cult, Hegelian dialect, Gladio-style strategia della transione going on, right? Oh, wait. They should have just immediately announced that the shooter's name is Brutus Harvey Earl Ray, just for the troll value. Most of the trolls would have just nodded, say, yeah, I guess that tracks. Thank you. Furrow's Queen says, you simply can't go around executing people because you hate them. If that were the case, I'd have no colleagues left and very few patients. Thank you, Furrow's Queen. Appreciate that. Thanks, everybody, very much for being
patients.
Here.
Is she a doctor?
Yeah. Are you a doctor? I don't know.
Are you a doctor first?
Home care or something? Yeah, we saw this too. We almost covered this today. We'll probably do this on Sunday, even though it'll be kind of old news. But yeah, it is just amazing. Within 2 hours of yesterday's shooting, Rabbi Shmuley had a GoFundMe, but not for Charlie's family, for himself. Yes.
Yeah, we were considering that as a segment.
We were considering it, yeah.
I didn't get to it.
Eric Rousseau says, do you think that the Kirk assassination could be a deep state false flag op whose purpose was to unite the right and get them off their demands for the Epstein files? I don't know about the motive, but I definitely believe this stinks to high heaven, and we will get into that in the next piece. I wanted to address the sort of cultural moment that this creates, even though I do think the particulars of this case make it more likely, much, much, much more likely, that this is not simply a random act, as we will get to. Let's see here. Let's see. Tackwish says, oops, sorry, I can actually put the chats on the screen right now, can I? Yeah. So Michael Castillo says, good morning, gentlemen. I think Mossad had Charlie killed to create a false flag operation because him and Tucker were pushing back against Israel. We'll get to that, my friend.
Yeah.
Tackwish says, no sympathies for anyone who has supported the deaths of Palestinians. Kuznetsky says, goddamn assassins. Thank you, Kuznetsky. Appreciate that. Okay, let's take a look here. All right, 265. I'm going to flag that. I'll read that, but later in the show. I don't want to come off of this topic too much here. But thank you. Bike Bison, thanks for the $49.99. Americans own 400 million guns. Thank you, Bike Bison. Many will refuse to turn over semi-autos if banned. Conservatives could still use forums and networks online to buy semi-autos. Only a Palantir surveillance state could greatly reduce gun ownership. You don't want that, right? No, I don't want that. No, I don't want that. I have not argued for that. I have not argued for gun confiscation. But I do think the proliferation of firearms combined with the highly toxic and divisive culture that has been fomented by the likes of Charlie Kirk and Jack Posobiec and Betty Jack. Yeah, I do think that. You have to think of it as dials, right, that you could turn up from 1 to 10. Right. So if you had concentration of firearms within a population, right, if that is at a 10, but the violence of the culture is at a 1, you're probably going to have fewer violence than if the concentration of firearms were at a 5 and the violence of the culture were at a 10, if that makes sense. We're at a 10 on both. OK, we're at a 10 on both. So how you tweak both of those dials matters. And so I'm not advocating for gun confiscation or even like I'm not for abolishing the Second Amendment. But if you have the concentration of firearms that we have throughout the population combined with this level of toxicity and hatred in the culture, that is the perfect recipe for what we have now. And I do find this faction of the commentariat to be particularly responsible. Not solely responsible. I'm not claiming that, but particularly responsible.
Not only that, these people about how they're going to use the guns to fight off a tyrannical government. Are you really going to make that fucking argument right now? Are you really going to make that argument right now? We included that in a segment we were doing the other day about Trump threatening Chicago. Oh yeah, no, all these people who said they need those guns to fight off the tyrannical government, they're all on the way to Chicago now, right?
Well,
they're all on the way to DC. They're all on the way to LA. Get the fuck out of here, man. Most of these
now
people,
they're trying to ban trans people from having guns.
Yeah, right.
What's that about?
And, well. Then you had Cenk on the other side. This is why not exclusive. And Cenk said the only people who should have guns are trans people.
Right.
If you remember, now he decided that his best interests lay in a different stance. But at one point, when he thought the money train was in the trans activism, that was what he advocated. You're not doing that. You're not doing that. So at the end of the day, the idea of most of these, Second Amendment fanatics is they want guns to back up a fascist government in their fascist takeover. They don't want guns to stop a fascist government. Yeah. So that argument doesn't really wash.
No. And these are people who fight with everything they have against red flag laws, against preventing people with mental illness from having guns. They don't like that, but they consider gender ideology to be a mental illness, and so they'll stop them from having guns. There's no consistency to any of these arguments. It's just, and I don't even believe it's to help affect. I believe, that phenomenon is driven largely at the cultural level by insecure men who want to feel more masculine in ways that they can't get out of their actual life. That's not to say every gun owner feels that way. No. I mean, look, my mother-in-law owns a gun. She lives, you drive through North St. Louis. It's the Wild West, man. There's no state support. There's no police. There's no hospitals. There's no nothing. Someone comes into your house.
Just overgrown lots.
Right. What are you going to do if you don't have? You need one to protect yourself if you live there. I feel that way. So it's not just about rural people. It's wherever you are. If you live in an area where help can't get to you. And that's a lot of this country. A lot of this country is hollowed out and, people are on their own. I understand that. But culturally, look, groups like the NRA exist to sell guns. They're not a human rights advocacy group. They are a marketing wing of the gun manufacturers. So their job is to breed a culture that fetishizes firearms and violence. That is what that is about. That is not about people exercising their rights. What is it? 70-some-odd% of their funding comes from gun manufacturers. That's what they do. Their job is to sell product, to move product. How do you move product? You create a cultural brand around the product. And their cultural brand is paranoia, fear, violence, sadism. That is what this is. That is what this is at a cultural level. That is not to say everyone who owns a gun for their own protection is participating in that, but that is what is driving this at the cultural level, which we talk about a lot. People are very persuaded by these narratives when it comes to deep state ops, putting certain ideas in people's heads, but not this one. Not this one. They don't like to go there because they love their guns too much. Why? Because they've been brainwashed into loving their guns.
Well, it's also, this is the untold story of these research cuts, because from what I understand, Harvard was on the verge of perfecting penis enlargement, which the NRA found would collapse gun sales nationwide.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So you got to look into that as well. There's always an angle. Always an angle. Okay. Where are we here? Let's go to, got that one already. All right. Nick Wesley says, double check dates for Chinese New Year. The celebrations are amazing, but good luck booking anything that time of year.
Yeah, that's like February.
Okay, cool.
I mean, I'm going to be in Asia, but I'm not planning on being in China.
Right.
At that time.
All right. We will move right on along here, and we will get to all of our super chats and Rumble rants in due time. Fear not about that. Okay, so we're talking about the tragic murder of Charlie Kirk. Now we're going to get into some details of how things unfolded on the day. So the alleged shooter of Charlie Kirk was arrested immediately, then released soon after when police determined he was not the shooter. So here is the guy, and I hesitate to even show this video because you don't like to show images of people who didn't do anything in this context. But we kind of have to, because it is pretty important, I think, to piecing together the events of this day. And so here he is being dragged away while in custody saying, shoot me, which is not the normal reaction of a man who has just been arrested under the false pretense that he just shot somebody.
Was that you? We don't know if it's him or not.
So this guy, look, I'm not going to show any more close-ups of him, but, here he is once again.
Shoot me! Shoot me! Was that you? We don't know if it's him or not.
Okay, so if I was just arrested and the cops are walking away saying, I don't know if it's him or not, why would I be screaming, shoot me, shoot me?
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't the natural reaction in that moment to be to say, I didn't do it, you have the wrong guy, or to just keep your mouth shut? What the hell is that about? That this guy who, and also I noticed as I was following Twitter yesterday, glued to the phone, like I'm sure many of us were, usually in these situations when they get the wrong guy at first, they'll have the wrong guy for a couple minutes. There'll be a few accounts that tweet out a few photos that go somewhat viral, but then it'll quite quickly go away. They'll quite quickly realize they got the wrong guy and stop. This went on for a while. We were under the opinion that he was the shooter for what felt like to me about an hour, which is a long time to have the wrong guy, to have images of the wrong guy circulating online. And the assumption was that, he was a boomer lib. I think that was everybody's assumption. Some people articulated that in tweets. But now, of course, we see this. Newly released footage shows the alleged shooter on the roof moments before he killed Charlie Kirk.
In place? You would think that. So there's somebody on the roof right there?
He's got to be police. You would think that. Okay, we're not going to show anymore because we obviously do not want to show the event itself here. But You know, yeah, I hate to say this, but given the events of like, the last year or so, if you see a shady looking dude on a roof, you should probably fucking tell somebody. Like, you probably make that known. Don't just assume it's a
Yeah.
cop up there. Like,
Yeah.
what the hell are you doing? Oh, yeah, who's that? All right. I mean, that is what it is at this point. So that comes and goes. Kash Patel, then at 6:20, tweets out the subject for the horrific shooting today that took the life of Charlie Kirk is now in custody. Thank you to the local and state authorities in Utah for your partnership with the FBI. We will provide updates when available. So to be clear, this was hours later, 6:21 p.m. on the East Coast. This was long after the original guy, the bald guy, the boomer guy there, had been released. It had been determined he was not the shooter at this point. So now this was a second person that they had apprehended and questioned. But of course, if you saw the community note there, they tagged that with this subsequent tweet. The subject in custody has been released after an interrogation by law enforcement. Our investigation continues, and we will continue to release information in the interest of transparency. And so for anybody watching the clip, we're doing this live stream noon on the 11th of September. So more information could be coming to light right now for all we know, and may have come to light by the time you watch this clipped video. But that is what we have as of now. There is no way, here, let me just shrink that so I could full screen this. There is no way someone untrained makes this shot and hits Charlie Kirk in the neck, says Grant Smith Ellis. If you've seen the video online, which you can, I can't say I advise that you watch it. That is up to you. It is quite disturbing. Direct shot right to the neck, jugular vein, blood everywhere. Pretty horrible to see. There's no way someone untrained makes this shot and hits Charlie Kirk in the neck. The shooter could only make it by getting far enough on the roof to clear the overhang of the building between him and Kirk. He then had to shoot over a crowd of hundreds and into a tent. If the person on that rooftop was the shooter, which I think is a safe assumption to make, but we cannot state that as fact, of course, that is a professional assassin. To hit that shot from that distance, one bullet, that is a pro. That is a pro. I feel pretty confident in saying that. To make matters even more suspicious, Director Kash Patel, these two men standing behind Charlie Kirk look like they were giving hand signals right before the shot went off. You might want to look at it. God bless and thank you all for doing what you can to help save America. So let's take a look at this. This was right before, seconds before he gets shot. The camera cuts right before the shot was fired.
There have been in America over the last 10 years.
Counting or not counting gang violence?
Again, I think it's kind of weird that the shot came right at that question. I can't say this for sure, obviously. Just a theory. Perhaps that question was a cue to do it. We don't know. But that combined with the fact that look at the guy in the white here. I'll mute the sound so we could just look at the image. He's acting like a third base coach.
Yeah.
Tipping the hat, hand over here. And then this guy, too. What is he doing over here? What's the guy in the black doing? It looks like they're giving...
But hang on, play the sound. Weren't they playing the Macarena?
Yeah, right. There was no Macarena there. No, that was his riff about gun violence. Look, I mean, that's very strange. That's very strange to happen literally seconds before the shot rings out. I think that is extremely strange.
Yeah. I mean, it's right there. Come on.
The plot.
What other reason would there be for these two guys to be making these clear signals?
The timing of that is very suspicious. Literally, gun violence. Those were the last words that Charlie Kirk spoke. I'll play with the sound again one more time.
How many mass shooters there have been in America over the last 10 years?
Counting or not counting gang violence?
Great.
Okay, literally the next split second is when he gets hit. Right as these, whatever these hand signals are, go off. Doesn't look good. I could say that. All right, so now, not to be predictable and cliche here, folks, but why was Charlie Kirk shot? Watch this. This was a month ago. Really watch it. If Charlie Kirk turned on Israel, they'd be fucked. Harrison Smith called it. So we're going to play an excerpt from this video in a moment, but I do want to set this up before we do that. So Harrison Smith, the guy he's referring to, tweeted this out a few weeks ago, I suppose, August 13th, almost a full month ago. I'm not going to name names, but I was told by someone close to Charlie Kirk that Charlie thinks Israel will kill him if he turns against them. Now, this is what you have to understand before we get into this more. Charlie Kirk swims in the same waters as Jack Posobiec, Benny Johnson, right? Gunther Eagleman, right? End Wokeness, MAGA Voice, all these influencers. He was not them. Charlie Kirk was extraordinarily influential in right-wing politics. Turning Point USA had established chapters, as you can see here, over 3,500 campuses. Turning Point USA was a very, very well-funded and well-oiled political machine. This is why many people in response to this shooting are recalling the first time they ever saw Charlie talk or the first time they met him. A very common recollection of theirs is they remember thinking when they first met this guy, he's going to be head of the RNC one day. He's going to be governor of a state one day. He's going to be president someday. And he very well could have been. He was only 31. He was not eligible to run.
Right. Yeah.
But when you look at the influence he had just as a podcaster, just as a personality, it was massive. And then look even further. Look at this ground game he had built out. Look at all of these chapters of his organization that when he becomes a candidate, they get turned into campaign apparatus. He was tremendously influential. This is not Benny Johnson hawking hats outside of Alligator Alcatraz. This isn't Gunther Eagleman going viral with his tweets. This was a formidable political project in the making. So that's what you have to understand going into this. This is not just some influencer. Okay? Here we go. On September 9th, Charlie Kirk conducted his final interview featuring Ben Shapiro as a guest. 10 minutes into the discussion, Kirk openly and objectively asked a question concerning his position on Israel.
Act against the media on COVID, on lockdowns, on Ukraine, on the border, on so like maybe we should also ask a question: is the media totally presenting the truth when it comes to Israel? Just a question, that maybe we shouldn't believe everything the media says, because I know I've been conditioned to ask a lot more critical questions over the last couple of years. So, Ben, some people would accuse...
Okay, so, again, this is not Benny Johnson saying this. This is not Gunther. This is this guy saying this. He could very, very easily be the future of the conservative movement, this guy, with the infrastructure that he had built out. There's a difference between being a star and having a machine behind you and having built a machine.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's watch a little more.
Israel of wanting to ethnically cleanse. Some people in the Israeli government are saying, again, it's all over the place, right? You have opinions all over. In your opinion, what would a good outcome 5 years from now be, and how does one respond to the claims of ethnic cleansing?
All right, now this, shout out to whoever did this. I'm assuming Graffernati actually did this, compiled this, but this is Charlie Kirk's side of that first video that I showed you with Megyn Kelly. So that's this. These are some highlights that are pieced together from a recent interview with Megyn Kelly.
Where, if, for example, if I have less ability sometimes online to criticize the Israeli government without backlash than actual Israelis do. It's
been
almost
so
as if
unfair. They were coming after you after Turning Point for, among other things, that you had Dave Smith there. Dave Smith is allowed to criticize Israel. You had both sides. The Israeli side was overrepresented.
No, you're not allowed to. It's even worse than that. Like, I host a person that I moderate the debate of, mind you, right? And I give equal time to Josh Hammer, equal time to a pro-Israel advocate, and my moral character is being put into question. And so I think it's a hyper paranoid, like, we're just going to try to, we're going to just stamp out everything type of practice.
It's there's some rule you can't go there when it comes to Israel.
Well, you and I believe that we're Americans and Americans first, period. End of story. We are citizens of this nation, okay?
That's right.
Israel, we have funded, we have supported, not like we're going to, but we're like, honestly, The way you are treating me is so repulsive. I have text messages, Megan, calling me an anti-Semite. But my moral character is now being put into question, Megan. Not my decisions. Not like, hey, are you doing this? Is it smart or is it dumb? But no, I am a bad person if I do this. And I could go, I mean, you saw it, Megan. It was trending on Twitter, thousands of tweets and text messages.
It's offensive to those of us who have been out there defending them in many instances against critics on our own side. And now you have a couple of comments like, well, what about?
Yep. So here is Charlie Kirk on the Patrick Bet-David podcast. Now, I don't know when this is. I just found this before we went to air. I haven't looked it up when this happened, but it doesn't really matter because if you look at what he said, it kind of speaks for itself. We'll play a little bit.
I put all those things out there.
Yeah.
How did these guys not know this was taking place?
So I've been to Israel many times. The whole country's a fortress. When I first heard this story, I still had the same gut instinct that I did initially. I find this very hard to believe. I've been to that Gaza border. You cannot go 10 feet without running into a 19-year-old with an AR-15 or an automatic machine gun that is an IDF soldier. Right, the whole country is surveilled, and so let me just kind of go through this.
Okay, so people are saying in the chat that's 2023. That makes sense. That makes sense. I think it was from a couple years ago, but there you have it. There you have it. So Syrian girl did a great thread on this. Charlie Kirk was attacked by Israel supporters last month and labeled an anti-Semite for defending free speech. Not everything is as it seems, and people have layers and hidden thoughts. Kirk was against that anti-boycott bill, which ultimately failed. He spoke out against that before it failed. To be fair, he did show a little backbone on that. He didn't just stick his finger in the wind and see which way Trump was going. He actually tried to influence the Trump administration to nix that, which, of course, they did, at least in Congress. Of course, she mentions this, the Harrison Smith. Charlie thinks Israel will kill him if he turns against them. We showed that a few minutes ago. Targeting in the neck. Very IDF coded. Last month, Charlie Kirk openly discussed Epstein being a Mossad agent with Megyn Kelly at Turning Point USA. He then called on the DOJ to release all of the files. The editor of Fox News and Spectator complained that if Charlie Kirk remained the head of TPUSA, it will cause an anti-Semitism problem. Cracks started to form after October 7th. This is Ben Dominic, Meghan McCain's husband. If Charlie Kirk remains the head of TPUSA, the right has an anti-Semite problem that will follow them into the coming elections. Again, I hate to be a broken record, but I just have to emphasize the amount of influence that TPUSA had on right-of-center politics. It was a huge deal that he was letting anti-Zionist voices into the conversation. Charlie Kirk essentially towed the line. He did a disgusting, horrible famine denial piece with an Israeli rabbi just a month and a half ago. I'm not trying to whitewash Charlie Kirk's record on this, but the very act of talking the way he talked with Megyn Kelly on that stage, putting Dave Smith on that stage to debate an Israel supporter, this was seen as a bridge too far for a lot of these people, and TPUSA is arguably as influential, if not more in the long run, than CPAC, because he was activating the next generation of political actors. I mean, it's huge. It's a huge machine. Zionists accused Charlie Kirk for infesting Turning Point with anti-Semitism as far back as 2023. You can see, sourced there. People started noticing Charlie Kirk shifting on Israel for the last month and predicting his assassination. Tommy Borum, if Charlie turned heel on Israel, they would have someone shoot him at an open-air event, and they'd have some idiot groiper with a genetically anomalous issue there to be the patsy or the fall guy. Turned out it was a boomer, lib type, or so we assume. That was the first fall guy. Part of why you never make the deal with the devil in the first place. Kryptonomicon says Charlie is in too deep. He knows it. We all do. He posted this yesterday. That I posted this a little over 3 weeks ago. Israeli media and Bill Ackman accused Charlie of platforming anti-Israel voices last month at TPUSA. Yep. This is something that we followed. I don't think we ever did a segment on it, but we followed it. You know, they had Tucker speak there. The old guard was not happy about that. The Dave Smith debate. You also had Benjamin Netanyahu immediately after news broke praying for Charlie Kirk, and he issued a statement about his murder before Donald Trump did. Charlie Kirk was murdered for speaking truth and defending freedom, blah, blah, blah. We won't read the rest of that. Free Palestine. But you add all that together, and I'm sorry, this smells like shit. This looks like, first of all, I could say 99.9% this was a professional job. To me, there is absolutely zero reason to think this was not a professional job. So then the question is, who did it and why? A false flag to instigate a civil war between right and left? Possible. But look at all this circumstantial evidence leading up to this. His last interview was with Ben Shapiro talking about Israel. We know. See, it really comes down to just understanding how influential he was and what a threat he would be if he were to buck the party line on an issue as big as this. And so, obviously, we have no proof. Obviously, we don't have any more evidence, really, than what I just showed you. But this looks terrible to me. The totality of everything, the way the day went down, the timeline of events, and seeing what he's had to say recently about this issue, it looks really bad. It looks really bad. It looks like this was a professional job. George Galloway said he believes it's a deep state job for whatever reason. I think he's correct. This was orchestrated, in my opinion.
Yes. And if you want to see how much influence the Zionist lobby and its proxies have lost, it's how quickly people came to that conclusion, because it's so obviously an orchestrated hit. So once you take the idea, oh, yeah, crazy lib, once that's off the table, and now you've got a guy who made a very difficult shot off a roof and seemingly got away. I don't know if this is true. People were sharing around that a plane left and turned off its transponder for about an hour from an airport there, and then turned it back on and returned. Why? So, yes, there's a lot of fishy stuff here. We always knew that these people are not going to go down quietly. They're not just going to accept, oh, we lost the propaganda war. Israel is a rabid dog that has been operating with impunity for over 3/4 of a century. And to them, they are in the final solution phase. They are in the phase where they get to the other side of what they've been aiming for. Greater Israel. They get Greater Israel, and in 100 years, they could do nice documentaries about how terrible what they did to the Palestinians were, right? Just like we have our documentaries about the Trail of Tears. Right. That is what they want. Let history judge us. By that time, it'll be done. We just have to get through this. That's how they're looking at things. We're going to see in the next segment, to go ahead and bomb the peace negotiations at Qatar, seemingly without, at the very least, Donald Trump's knowledge or permission. They don't care if they start World War III. It looks like they might be accomplishing what many people have lamented looked impossible, uniting the neighborhood against them by doing this. And they don't care. They're saying, hey, well, what's the U.S. going to do if that happens? Not get into it, and then they have what they want. They want World War III. They want this final battle so that they can have their Greater Israel. To whack Charlie Kirk, to them, that's put that not only taking Charlie Kirk off the table, who, as you point out, was no Gunther Eagleman or Patrick Bet-David. He wasn't just a clown with a microphone. He was a guy with a very activated national organization.
Yes, he was an
organizer. Very easily have been mobilized.
Yes.
Very good. Well, he was a prodigy. He was a true prodigy in the space. But a much more effective one than Ben Shapiro, and one who was not in their service in that way. And they could see how that was going. You know, young Republicans are mostly not in favor of our policies towards Israel, and he was a young Republican, and it looked like he was going to go more and more that way over time. It's also to scare the rest of them. Now, I think on that level, it's going to backfire. I think it's you could already see it backfiring by how fast this conversation turned. They dropped the crazy lib story pretty quick pretty fast. Like, Gunther Eagleman doesn't give a shit. He's just gonna write out the thing that's gonna get him the most clicks. He doesn't care. Right off the block, he was going with they declared war. Even the Chud accounts have seem to have dropped that, man. The conversation seemed to have turned to Israel right away, like within hours, once people saw what a professional job this was. If there was one thing you're not going to convince MAGA of, it's the gun competence of libs.
Well, that's the other thing. Yes, obviously, once it came out that the bald guy, the old guy, was not the guy, at that point, I think a lot of people came to this thought very quickly. Because
who was it who tweeted it out? I think you sent it to me like very early, like, hey, let's not jump to conclusions here.
Michael Tracy? Just kidding. Haha. No. It's a joke. Got to lighten the mood somehow, right? Yeah, no, I mean, I forget who that was. I've read thousands of tweets over the past 15 hours. But yeah, no, I mean, you made a very important point, which I forgot to make, which is a good one, that the guy got away. And not only did the guy get away, but the guy got away for what felt like, I don't have the exact timing in my head, but what felt like a good hour or so, we were under the impression that the shooter was in custody, that it was that first guy. And people fucking doxed his name. They put pictures out. Like, I would say I feel terrible for that guy, but given his behavior, you have to wonder if he was in on it. I mean, I can't say that. I don't want to say that about the guy if I don't know it. But what's he doing screaming, shoot me, shoot me, shoot me, while the cops take him away if he didn't do anything? Right. Like, he's acting like a guy. Like, you're either acting. Why, if you didn't just shoot a man, would you act like a lunatic who just shot a man while you're in handcuffs?
Look,
unless you are doing that, unless you are playing your part in a play. Right. It just doesn't make sense.
For an hour, the money is in the Swiss.
That's what I mean.
Untraceable.
Right. While that's going on, this guy, whoever does it, gets away. And I just saw on Twitter, they're posting pictures of the suspect. They're looking for information about him. He's got sunglasses, black shirt. Hard to really tell much about him. We'll see what happens on that score. We'll see what information comes to light. Obviously, we have proof of nothing, but man, does it not look good. Man, does it not look good. And I don't think that's an unreasonable position. All right. We will continue on with the program here. Mark Givens says, fake headline, incompetent assassin misses world's biggest head. Laura Kaminsky, Keaton's empathy, compassion, coupled with solid analysis and integrity makes me admire him more and more. Thank you for this take. Thank you, Laura. Appreciate that. Stu Shadwell says it's a civil liberties issue. Advocating political violence for speech, no matter how horrible, invites further government mob suppression of speech. Of course. Misdirection. Change the subject. Epstein who? Ultra chaos and now mockingbird, says Amazing Blumpkin. Yep. Spinfluencers equals useful idiots. Money. Remember Charlie, forget Epstein, because says Kuznetsky Bassane. John Olmstead, I was scared you were going to have a bad take on this CK thing, but you just ended up making me cry. Love you both. Oh, well, sorry about that, John. Appreciate that. Appreciate the compliment.
We did. Your take did get us a few unsubscribes.
Well, that's fine. People that Yeah.
Oh, listen, man. If you are that much of a regard, you're not going to last here very long. Yes, please go.
That's fine.
Go.
You actually bothered. I could tell where Russell's head was at while I was doing that. He's like, "Oh, let me check the sub count." He starts giving me signals. Stop.
Yeah, like I can. Yeah, I quarterbacked how many Daryl Cooper segments?
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah.
No. I was
go to commercial. Hit that. Yeah.
No, I was trying to find the thing that you sent me.
Oh, the thing. Yeah. Yeah, no, that's not.
Or take a look at that with amusement.
Yeah. Yeah, someone said something in one of our chats. Oh yeah, this one. Kawaii Cowboy says, I feel like DD is about to unburden themselves of audience capture again. Here's hoping. Yeah. No, I mean, that doesn't factor into it. That doesn't factor into it. I mean, what I had to say is what I have to say, and people can like it or not like it, and that's it. That's it. It's a big internet out there.
Well, that's the kind of thing, man, where you're going to have some people who actually would like to see an endorsement of it. Like, you got to remember there are people like that.
Yeah.
Seriously. Once they see you say good.
And then there are going to be people who want a eulogy, who want me to, find the good in him. Right.
Exactly.
Which I'm really not interested in either of those two positions. All right. Let's see. Kirk didn't do intellectual inquiry. He trolled 18-year-olds. Notice he never debates the professors. Yep, I agree with that. Okay, let's go to the one shot and gone for good. Professional hit for sure. Yeah, I mean, that seems pretty obvious. In light of Charlie, check out the movie Last Supper from 1996. Oddly fitting. Thank you for that. Okay. Let's move right on along, shall we? We do have other news to cover. Israel attacked Qatar.
Yep. So our illustrious president truthed this out a couple days before the attack. Everyone wants the hostages home. Everyone wants this war to end. The Israelis have accepted my terms. Yeah, sure they did. It is time. That's what they told you. It is time for Hamas to accept as well. I have warned Hamas about the consequences of not accepting. This is my last warning. There will not be another one. Thank you for your attention to this matter, etc., etc. So this is from Adame Media. Trump posted this days before Israel bombed Qatar. It was a trap. When the peace negotiators gathered to discuss the deal, they were bombed. Israel don't want peace. They want land. Now, it seems increasingly, yes, that's true. Seems like Trump didn't get the memo. So here's a little bit about this with a pretty remarkable interview with Mike Huckabee from the Today Show.
Israel launched the airstrike on a building in Qatar where Hamas leaders were meeting. Qatari officials say they were discussing President Trump's proposal for a ceasefire and called Israel's action an attack on all principles of diplomacy. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu said the mission was launched after Hamas claimed responsibility for a mass shooting in Jerusalem this week.
These are the same terrorist chiefs who planned, launched, and celebrated the horrific massacres of October 7th.
Today, NBC News sat down with the U.S. ambassador to Israel, Mike Huckabee, in his first interview since the controversial Israeli strike.
One of the things that stood out to me the most is that the United States, the White House, found out about this operation, not from Israel, but from the U.S. military. How could that possibly be?
I don't know, because I wasn't privy to what the timeline was when the decisions were made and how they were executed. So I don't know what the sequence was yesterday when everything went down.
How can that be when you have such a close relationship with Israel? Do you think that this was disrespectful, taking the U.S. for granted, taking President Trump's support for granted?
Well, I don't see it that way. I just see it as that countries make decisions based on what they think their best interests are. And that doesn't mean everyone agrees. Sometimes we do, sometimes we may not.
The Israeli strike was certainly a setback for ceasefire negotiations. Qatari officials say there are currently no negotiations underway, but they say they are open to resuming them, but they have very little confidence, very little faith. Craig.
Richard, I think you need to fuck that wall.
Yeah.
You need to fuck that wall. You seem like you haven't fucked the wall yet, because once you fuck the wall, I think you'll understand.
Yeah.
That is some wall there. You've never had wall like that. So this is from Hassan Mafi. If you ever feel dumb and stupid, remember that Qatar gave a $400 million jet as a gift to Trump, and in return, Trump gave a green light to Zionistan to bomb Qatar. Yeah, a lot of comments like that. Although it doesn't look like it came from Trump. I got to say, it doesn't look like he's lying about that. I will say I really like that name. We should stop calling it Israel. Zionistan. I like that. I like that. Max Blumenthal. 2 days ago, Trump issued a short proposal and warning designed to compel Hamas's exiled leadership to gather in Doha. Hamas said at the time, it looks like Trump's proposal was written by the Israelis. When Hamas met today in Doha, U.S. air defenses in Qatar stood down. This is where I say we're behind it, but Trump didn't necessarily know about it. Does anyone think he's actually in charge? That he actually makes these decisions?
Right.
Israeli officials, I trust Max's reporting. Israeli officials have told the Jerusalem Post the U.S. greenlit the decapitation strike. The negotiations have reached their death knell as Israel moves forward its final solution in Gaza. And the Trump administration has once again shown its true face as a subsidiary of the Zionist regime. A lawless axis of messianic genocidal gangsterism spans seamlessly from Tel Aviv to Washington. Nicely done there, Max. So this is in response to Keir Starmer's expression of outrage. This Moeezy. This slimy snake condemns the very actions he assisted in. His UK fuel vessel in Qatar refueled the Israeli jets that bombed Qatar. Those same jets then landed back in Qatar. Shameless. So you can see here on the right, they show the radar of the refueling and the return, the jet path here. But Keir Starmer nonetheless says, I condemn Israel's strikes on Doha, which violate Qatar's sovereignty and risk further escalation across the region. The priority must be an immediate ceasefire, the release of hostages, and a huge surge in aid into Gaza. This is the only solution towards long-lasting peace. With some of these reactions, it seems like some of these people were for it, and then they saw the backlash and felt like they had to act like they were against it. So this is Netanyahu's statement yesterday. Today, as most of you probably know, is 9/11. So he decided to try to tie Israel's actions to this date.
Tomorrow is September 11th. We remember September 11th. On that day, Islamist terrorists committed the worst savagery on American soil since the founding of the United States. We also have a September 11th. We remember October 7th. On that day, Islamist terrorists committed the worst savagery against the Jewish people since the Holocaust. What did America do in the wake of September 11th? It promised to hunt down the terrorists who committed this heinous crime wherever they may be. And it also passed a resolution in the Security Council of the UN 2 weeks later that said governments cannot give harbor to terrorists. Well, yesterday, we acted along those lines. We went after the terrorist masterminds who committed the October 7th massacre. And we did so in Qatar, which gives safe haven. It harbors terrorists. It finances Hamas. It gives its terrorist chieftains sumptuous villas. It gives them everything. So we did exactly what America did when it went after the terrorists, the Al-Qaeda terrorists in Afghanistan, and after they went and killed Osama bin Laden in Pakistan. Now the various countries of the world condemn Israel. They should be ashamed of themselves. What did they do after America took out Osama bin Laden? Did they say, oh, what a terrible thing was done to Afghanistan or to Pakistan?
We did nothing good, but nothing like what you're doing. Yeah. Sorry, I couldn't resist. Finish it.
No, they applauded. They should applaud Israel for standing and up to these same principles and carrying them out. And I say to Qatar and all nations who harbor terrorists, you either expel them or you bring them to justice. Because if you don't, we will.
Okay. So consider how batshit crazy this is. They went to Doha by invitation to work out a peace deal. They weren't hiding out in Doha. They were there with full diplomatic offer and honors and expectations. Once you bomb people under what's essentially a flag of truce, the reason you don't do that is because it makes it almost impossible for you to negotiate with belligerent parties going forward who will ever trust you once you do that. That's why generally, even the most psychopathic leaders have honored the flag of truce, which is essentially what you're under when you show up by mutual agreement to peace negotiations. To bomb them with the argument they were terrorists. If you felt that way, you should not have offered essentially a flag of truce by offering to have these negotiations with them. Once you do that, you're giving them the right to be there with the implicit promise you're not going to attack them if they show up. Who's going to negotiate with you now?
Well, this is just, evidence, number, 5,531 that Israel is not interested in negotiation or brokering any kind of peace. I would say, what else do you need to see? But like I said, we've seen evidence abound of this before.
Right. So this is, I believe he's the former prime minister. He's currently the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Al Thani of Qatar. He went on CNN and the reporter asked him about this threat to do it again from Netanyahu.
Don't accept, first of all, such a threat coming from someone like Netanyahu, and he's calling about bring them to justice. He needs to be brought to justice. He's the one who's wanted to the ICC. That's number one. So I think that someone like him trying to lecture the world about the law, he's breaking every law. He broke every international law. He's starving people in Gaza. He's doing all these rogue actions in the entire region. What's next? What's next for him?
You've described him as a narcissist. What do you mean by that?
Well, I have no other explanation, because the act itself, the significance of this act, there is no human mind can just absorb it. We were thinking that we are dealing with civilized people. That's the way we are dealing with others. And the action that he took, it's very, I cannot describe it, but it's a barbaric action.
Exactly. It's barbaric. It's barbaric. In the Middle Ages, if you rode out with a white flag, they wouldn't have attacked you.
Mm-hmm.
So everyone's favorite aficionado of cosmetic surgery, Carolyn Levitt, went out and made a statement about this that seems to indicate, between this and what Trump said, that they really didn't know Israel was going to do this. There may be parts of the Pentagon and the military and the deep state that facilitated it, but it looks like in the executive, they may actually have been out of the loop.
The Trump administration was notified by the United States military that as Israel was attacking Hamas, which very unfortunately was located in a section of Doha, the capital of Qatar. Unilaterally bombing inside Qatar, a sovereign nation and close ally of the United States that is working very hard and bravely taking risks with us to broker peace, does not advance Israel or America's goals. However, eliminating Hamas, who have profited off the misery of those living in Gaza, is a worthy goal. President Trump immediately directed Special Envoy Witkoff to inform the Qataris of the impending attack, which he did. The president views Qatar as a strong ally and friend of the United States and feels very badly about the location of this attack. President Trump wants all of the hostages in Gaza and the bodies of the dead released, and this war to end now. President Trump also spoke to Prime Minister Netanyahu after the attack. The Prime Minister told President Trump that he wants to make peace, and quickly. President Trump believes this unfortunate incident could serve as an opportunity for peace. The president also spoke to the Emir and Prime Minister of Qatar and thanked them for their support and friendship to our country. He assured them that such a thing will not happen again on their soil.
Okay. And Kelly Meyer, shout out. She's the one who actually got this. Asked Trump outside of a restaurant what his reaction was, and he claimed not to have known anything about it.
In advance, Mr. President, did Israel tell you in advance?
So you were caught by surprise, sir? You were caught by surprise?
I'm never surprised by anything, especially when it comes to the Middle East.
How did you learn about this
Simply when it comes to those Jew bastards, to the Middle East.
Tomorrow, but
I expect that from those people.
From those people,
they're shifty.
Very unhappy about every aspect. And
you ever try and buy concrete from them? They're worse than the mafia.
Very unhappy about the way that went down.
What does it mean for your?
One time I ordered a ton of concrete. They sent me half sour pickles. That's how they are.
Said that's what you ordered.
That's what they say. I had to go back and forth with them. I had to go through 4 different guys in the warehouse. God telling me I ordered pickles. So here's Axios. So this is the latest. This just dropped today. Trump demanded Netanyahu commit not to strike Qatar again. Now, look, we don't have a big organization here, but we have a lot of people who are friendly to the show who give us information. So we can't validate this, but one of our sources claims to have a picture of this conversation.
Yeah.
Apparently, it got a little tense there. Trump looks very tense in that picture. We can't authenticate it, but reportedly this is what happened inside that meeting.
Kash Patel's looking into it.
He's looking into it. President Trump demanded a commitment from Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu not to strike Qatar again after the attack against Hamas leaders in Doha. 2 sources with knowledge of the issue tell Axios. Netanyahu didn't consult Trump or any of his top advisors until missiles were in the air. The strike infuriated the White House and alarmed leaders in the region and around the world. The attack was damaging not just for Israel's global standing, but potentially for America's. Qatar's prime minister told the White House his country would now reevaluate its security partnership with Washington after this act of betrayal, and said in a CNN interview that leaders across the Gulf were discussing how to respond. But Netanyahu is publicly unapologetic, even suggesting he might order another attack regardless of Trump's demand. Trump's advisors were genuinely shocked by the strike in Qatar, a close U.S. ally, and now the 7th country Israel has bombed since October 7th. I'm not thrilled about the whole situation. I was very unhappy about every aspect, Trump told reporters on Tuesday night. One source close to Trump told Axios that the way Netanyahu and his confidant Ron Dermer handled the issue was an unpleasant reminder of the behavior that led to friction with Trump in his first term. Trump held 2 phone calls with Netanyahu on Tuesday to discuss the strike. During their first call, Trump expressed disappointment with the Israeli decision and puzzlement over what it was supposed to achieve in the long term. It's unacceptable. I demand that you do not repeat it. I told Miriam I'd take the 15 inches. I didn't even make her put on the 12-incher. And you go ahead and do this. You go ahead and do this, Benji. I let you have all of my orifices last time you visited, and we even did your laundry. And this is how you treat me? This is how you repay me? Trump then updated the Qatari emir and prime minister, both of whom were furious. One former U.S. official said Prime Minister Mohammed bin Abdul Rahman Al Thani I guess he is still prime minister, told U.S. officials that he views what happened as a betrayal by Israel and by the U.S. Al Thani told White House envoy Steve Witkoff that after being attacked by both Iran and then Israel within 6 months, Qatar will conduct a deep evaluation of its security partnership with the U.S. and maybe find some other partners who can support its security if needed, a source with direct knowledge said. The White House didn't respond to a request for comment. Netanyahu claimed that the Israeli attack on Hamas in Qatar is similar to the U.S. pursuit of al-Qaeda in Afghanistan. We just heard that. Despite these statements, Netanyahu asked Qatar to lead the mediation efforts with Hamas after the October 7th attacks and previously facilitated payments from Qatar to Hamas for years. This is something you'll never hear from the Zionists. So you stand with Hamas? You stand with Hamas? Well, ask Netanyahu that. He funded Hamas.
Right.
He paid, does Netanyahu stand with Hamas? Because he stood with Hamas for a very long time. He funded them. He propped them up to avoid addressing the question of a Palestinian state.
To avoid a peace process,
to undermine the Palestinian Authority.
Right.
If you have a problem with Hamas, talk to Netanyahu.
Right.
Leaders in Europe and across much of the world have also condemned the Israeli strike. Hamas claims the Israeli attack was a failure because its top leader survived. Supposedly only a few lower level people were actually hit by the attack. And finally, Mohammed Safa tweeted out, "Congrats to Israel for violating Vienna Convention and state sovereignty for bombing 9 countries in 1 year. Palestine, Lebanon, Yemen, Syria, Iran, Iraq, Tunisia, Portugal, the boat, and Qatar. Only Israel can bomb 9 countries and still be perceived as the victim." Well, see, that's the problem. Nobody is perceiving them that way at this point. And when you look at the upshot, not only of Israel's actions, but U.S. actions beyond the area of foreign policy and the area of economics, of diplomacy, what you're really creating is a world where you have the United States and Israel versus everybody else. Even Italy just announced that they're going to recognize a Palestinian state at this UN meeting next week. So who do you have left? Who do you have left? And if this unites the Arab world against Israel, I don't know what they think, because in spite of the propaganda they tried to put out, we saw the footage. Iran fucked them up pretty bad in that exchange. They were getting hit pretty hard in their cities. What do you think is going to happen if the Arab world that's kind of succumbed to this divide and conquer game that's been going on since the British Empire was there, if they get together and focus on Israel? They're talking about how Turkey is worried that they could get hit. Can you imagine if Turkey gets involved in it? I mean, that is World War III, which very much like Ukraine, and there's part of what's so dangerous about our relationship to these countries. That's what they want.
They want it.
They see World War II as being in their interest. If you didn't, you wouldn't bomb Qatar, a close U.S. ally, without warning Trump.
Well, obviously. I mean, look at how crazy he is, threatening to do this again. If you don't do it, we will. Well, you and what army?
Ours.
Right. Well, well, that's the $1 million question, right? They're relying on it, just like Ukraine, more under Biden, but they seem to be getting their way little by little under Trump as well, assuming that we'll back them. And so that means they have the green light to be as bellicose as they'd like. And you saw it in what Netanyahu said there. It is just psychotic. It's psychotic. It is apocalyptic. And yeah, obviously just an outrageous attack. But yeah, no, that is what they want. Because that is their path to victory. You're right, both in Israel and in Ukraine. They are relying on the current order to hold enough for the powers to play by the old rules and abide them. Right. We will see if it happens. We'll see if it happens. When will the world have enough of this? That's the question. And again, as you mentioned, this all happens on the eve of what should be, what will be for sure, the most closely covered and scrutinized UN General Assembly in a very, very long time.
Yes, I plan on going over there. Like, we can't go in. We are not qualified to get the credentials to be on the floor. But I will go to the outside of the UN to interview people.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Let's see over here. 265005 says, according to gifted Kurt Metzger, Russ got duped by Mondani. With all due respect, if I was duped by RFK, Tulsi, Donnie shtick to the point of tacit support, I would keep quiet about Zoran. Yeah, I mean, is that what he said?
I mean, what does that mean?
Yeah.
Like the first time I interviewed him, I said, yeah, he seems to me like a politician who ducks answers.
Yeah. I mean, we always have had our eyes open about him. Yeah. Patty Savage, thanks for the $4.99. Thank you both. Oh, by the way, speaking of Kurt, we're going to be hosting the Jimmy Dore Show next week, Monday and Wednesday. And Wednesday next week, we will be sitting in the chair. And then Kurt is coming to Saratoga next month. I gotta.
Oh, is he?
I have to go see him. I missed him last time. I wasn't around for the last time. I happened to be gone while he was here, but yeah, he's coming to Saratoga, which is right in my neck of the woods. So maybe I'll head out there. Patty Savage, thank you both. Appreciate that. Prester John says, Russ is right. It's wild that we have VP, a hillbilly elegy, and MAGA pushes race culture instead of poverty as the cause behind crime. Trailer parks in Appalachia have it bootstrapped themselves away. Thank you. Progressive Lefty says, very well said, both of you. That is why DD is the best show online. Well, thank you, Progressive Lefty. Appreciate that.
Thank you
very much. By the way, we are at 2875 in the YouTube chat.
In the year 2525.
And 1,200 likes. All right. There you go. Smash that like button, everybody. Smash that. We're up to 1,208 likes, but let's get even more in there. Brad Gilbert says, it was an op. Old guy was the fall guy, but bystanders' videos proves he wasn't it. No one behind Kirk. Convenient. Now White House needs new BS to sell MAGA. Thank you. Jose Vega's watching, declaring independence. Thanks, Jose. Says, definitely false flag. Intelligence agencies use the culture of violence as a cover, which is why we need to be outspoken against that culture. If we don't, anyone on the left becomes a legitimate target. Thank you, Jose. About that island, thanks for the $10. Private plane took off from Bravo shortly after the shooting. Transponder went offline after 15-20 minutes. Poster on X. Yeah, Russ mentioned that in the segment. Yeah.
Is that where they invented the cheese?
Yeah, that's exactly. Exactly. Ryan Spence says, Tracy already posted anyone who instantly assumed Israel was behind it has Israel derangement syndrome, and that conclusion doesn't make sense. Yeah, no, a friend of ours texted that to us before we went on the air. Yeah. That is quite the that is quite
we're gonna have him on. It'll be fun.
Yeah, it'll be fun. Miguel Calito Lozano, it's not a party until Michael Tracy shows up. Old people who get stopped by police for crimes they didn't commit tend to be wise guys verbally. They're old, fed up, and okay with their fate. Thank you, Miguel. Appreciate that. All right, let's see what we got over here on the Rumble side. Let's see. Monkey Rotary says, feel bad for Russ and Keaton. So much news, so little trustworthy Jews. Thank you, Monkey Rotary. Breaking news, everyone. Authorities caught the shooter. It was a left-wing transgender Palestinian Muslim migrant who once had an abortion. Congrats to the FBI on delivering swift justice. Well, that's the other thing. The longer we go without apprehending a guy, the more people are going to suspect that they get a guy who fits a narrative who may or may not be the guy. Nocturnal Human, I said this on Kit's show earlier, nobody has to earn my empathy, but you can earn its absence by how you choose to live. That is fair. Vito P says, while I abhor violence, I will feel no pain here. Cancer sucks. You guys rock. RB says, this event checks all the boxes for the reactionary fascist. Problem, reaction, solution, order out of chaos. Yep, I agree, RB. Could have been anyone, really. Kirk just got the short straw and was chosen to be the martyr. They got their George Floyd now. I guess people can just claim it was their 9/11, as today is to justify more killings.
Mm-hmm.
Vito says, my apologies for the previous rant. No apologies necessary, Vito. And I do not believe this was a simple case of murder. Trump is already suggesting that Charlie is a martyr. Cancer sucks. You guys rock. Yeah, no one has to feel bad for Charlie Kirk. Like, I'm not trying to like police people's emotions. Just trying to put things in context, you know. You can't control how you feel, and people have a right to feel like he was not a good guy. He was not a good guy. Simple as that. To anyone who thinks this was not a professional hit, give me a ring. I've got a bridge to sell you. Thank you, Crystal Waters, MAGA for Palestine there. I noticed did you lose your MAGA? Oh, no, you have your MAGA for Palestine on X, not on Rumble. All right. Devane says they are trying to disarm us. Under no pretext should arms and ammunition be surrendered. Any attempt to disarm the workers must be frustrated by force if necessary. Karl Marx. Yes. My only response to that, my response to that is that you don't have the pretext for workers' rebellion. What you have is the pretext for a fascist crackdown and a civil war and a breakdown into absolute chaos.
Right.
And that's what's going to happen. So for all the people who like to talk on Twitter like we're around the corner from a Marxist revolution. No, what you're around the corner from is being thrown into a dungeon, if not killed by the state. That's what you're around the corner from.
Exactly. Where's your look, man? I mean, with all love and everything, we know enough commies that I know, it's like 6 people standing around a coffee maker when they have meetings. Okay, like this is not that there is no structure of Bolsheviks.
You want to talk like that?
Do something like that.
It's going to take 50 years of building union density before you can even talk like that in a way that is connected to reality. Other than that, it speaks to more of a death drive, to be honest. It speaks to someone who wants to be black bagged and tortured to death.
Right.
Because that's what's going to happen.
Yeah,
right?
Assuming we don't irradiate the world first. What I honestly think is going to happen. Hey, people are very locked into their historical moment with very little sense of the past, very little sense of context. The East and the Near East was civilization for most of the history of civilization. The Western world being dominant in world affairs, that's a blip in history. It's an anomaly. It's not the norm. You're going to wind up having the West is going to collapse. It's already falling behind technologically and economically from the East. And that is going to become the new center of gravity. And just like when the West was the center of gravity, it influenced that part of the world deeply. That's what's going to happen in the other direction. Once the center of gravity moves there, we're going to want to be like them. That is going to become where the movies come from. It's already happening. Where the anime is much bigger now than these superhero things that are, as American as apple pie. I think that's where we're going. Like America's going to collapse. It's going to take the West down with it. And it's going to shift the center of cultural and economic gravity back to the East for the foreseeable future.
Right. I agree. I wish everyone has your empathy, guys. Unfortunately, J.D. Vance doesn't give a shit. Thank you. China Shill says, Keaton is right. I just couldn't help myself. It's okay, China Shill. You two just keep getting better and better, says T-Bone. Coming from a long-term supporter. I didn't think you were going to be able to top the last show, but you did it again. Bravo, T-Bone.
Thank you, man. T-Bone. Thank you. That's really nice.
That is very nice of you to say. That's very nice of you to say. I've been in a dire emotional state the last 12 hours. I didn't even have the heart to drop the Walter Kern clip yet. We'll drop it tomorrow. But
Don't forget with that robot clip. I know it's not timely. I gotta cut in that percent thing.
Well, I also have to take the section from the YouTube stream because we had to cut some of the music out because it got copyrighted. So that's gonna take a little.
Okay.
It's gonna take a little preparation, but we'll get it out. Raven Laz, I need urgent funds immediately to make the custom 20-incher codename Godzilla. Miriam needs to go urge Trump to start war with Iran. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Crab Eaters Real says, I had the same thought, R.E. Kirk. Well said, Keaton. Also, too many ugly coincidences make this very convenient for a lot of right-wing Zionist narratives. Power under pressure, dangerous times. Well, look, I didn't even get into Trump's statement because I had a little monologue that I wanted to do, and I wanted to keep it as lean as possible. But, yeah, they can use this to whatever end they want, just like they could use 9/11 to whatever end they want. Just like they could use October 7th to whatever end they want. Like, these are very, very dangerous times, which is why I think that unrealistic rhetoric about how, it's necessary to clutch to your guns because Karl Marx said so 100 and some odd years ago, I think that is ill-advised. Kirk was also on the Ukrainian kill list, which also includes Jimmy Dore and Scott Ritter. He was on the Ukraine list? I didn't know that. I knew Jimmy and Scott were on that. Jimmy says that whenever you meet him. That's the first thing he says whenever you shake his hand. He wants you to, he's very proud of that.
Oh, yeah, and then he pats you down.
Yeah, and then he has Steph pat you down. Exactly. Yes. All right. What do we got here next coming up? All right, folks. So this is kind of a bridge into the lighter side of things today. It's a tough show to do. We're doing our best. Thanks everybody for being here. Please smash that like button. So we all know that this happened. We covered this on the last show. Here it is. We got Trump's birthday note to Jeffrey Epstein.
Listen, man, you did not win any fans among the small-breasted with that segment.
It's like, this is not a woman. Yeah. Yeah.
Some people got very upset about that.
Were they really like, how dare you say that? Sorry, I touched a nerve. I didn't mean to. I'm trying to make a point about Jeffrey Epstein here. You know, bigger fish to fry. But
I mean, really, what my argument to that, anyone who felt that way, it's the context.
It's the context, right?
Like, yes, there are adult women who are small-breasted, but you're talking about probably the world's most famous fan of the playground, and Donald Trump, who, in my opinion, was credibly sued before she got scared out of it by someone who claimed she was assaulted by him when she was 13. So in context, yes, sure. That's a portrayal of a pubescent girl.
Yes, and also in context, if Donald
Not a
Trump,
child, a pubescent. Girl, like 12, 13.
Yeah. In context, if Donald Trump wanted to draw a picture of a naked woman as a lewd joke, you think Donald Trump's going to go for the A cup? I don't think so. I don't think so. Right?
Yes. It's context. Yes.
It's context. Context matters, ladies, to our 14% female audience. Remember, context matters. Yeah. So
93% of which turn out to be small-breasted.
Yeah, right. Should have done more research before that
Stepped on a landmine
segment, I
there.
guess. That's what happens when you don't prepare.
Yeah.
We got Trump's birthday note to Jeffrey Epstein that the president said doesn't exist. Trump talks about a wonderful secret the two of them shared. What is he hiding? Release the files. That's funny. I didn't read those comments. We've got a lot of, I'm a boomer and I protested Vietnam. We haven't got a lot of, I have small tits and I'm a woman just as much as anyone else.
We got that when you dropped the Scott Bessent thing. Since you touched on it, you can cut this from the clip because it's really a digression. But I'm just going to say, man. All right, so if the knock on boomers is that they're narcissistic, self-obsessed, and entitled, do you think that you're helping that by swarming the comment section every time somebody says something that's less than glowing about your cohort? Do you really think that is dispelling the idea that you're a self-obsessed, entitled generation? People slam Gen Xers.
Right.
You ever see Gen Xers swarm like a beehive?
People slam millennials constantly. Millennials.
Constantly.
The Gen Xers, boomers love beating up on the millennials.
Sure.
I take it.
And I will make this point as part of that. As an Xer, I didn't have it as good as the boomers did, but I understand how good I had it. I don't slam millennials and Zers partly for that reason.
Right.
Yo, man, I can't say anything against them. I had it good, and you had it better than me.
Mm-hmm.
So the fucking balls to bitch about that resentment, and then you think that doesn't reinforce that criticism? Yeah, man, I didn't grow up with a silver spoon in my mouth either, man. I grew up on welfare, and I still understand that I had a much better historical moment to be in than they do. I still don't beat up on them for that reason. So the fact that you feel comfortable jumping up and down rather than to understand, you're just kind of proving the point every time you do that. So if you are one of those people, shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
Shut the fuck up. Go watch your fucking Woodstock documentary and get out of the fucking comments section, jerk off.
Yeah.
Stop it.
I watched Weapons the other night. I loved it, and I loved the end. The ending, that was some real boomer porn at the end. Yeah, there's some subtext there. You know, where the kids all, you know, I don't want to say it because it's a great movie. I don't want to spoil it for people who haven't seen it. I highly recommend it. It was fantastic. And it's one of those where you really want to know as little as you can. But if you want some generational resentment catharsis at the end, it offers that. It offers that.
Yeah,
in spades.
like we understand you weren't all rich. Like we get it. Like we get it. We've talked a lot about this. How studies have shown that the poorer boomers died. So that's part of why the people who remain tend to be right wing and conservative. Like, we get all that. Shut the fuck up.
Right.
Shut up. Do you know how lucky you were? Like, look, man, you didn't, if you personally are not one of the boomers that benefited from your historical moment, chances are that's the choices you made. I feel that way as a Gen Xer. I'm not sitting here like, oh, I don't have a house. I could have had a house.
Right.
That wasn't what I prioritized. But certainly, dude, you could in the 90s when I was making money driving a horse and carriage like a fucking gangster walking around with $2,000 in my pocket, you could get a fucking you could get a condo in Long Island City for $60,000.
Right.
Then I could have done it. So I don't sit around now being like, no, I'm not one of the rich ones. I could have been.
Right.
The millennials, the Zers, they don't even have that option. It's not there for them.
Right. Exactly. All right. So back to the story. So in response to this, we know Carolyn Levitt issued a tweet denying the authenticity of this document. And now here she is being asked about it at the press conference.
Epstein case, would the White House support a professional handwriting expert review of the document released yesterday to prove that it's not the president's signature?
Sure, we would support that. And in fact, I have already seen many forensic analysts of signatures coming out. I believe it was the Daily Signal that published a piece with 3 separate signature analysts who said that this absolutely was not the president's authentic signature. And we have maintained that position all along. The president did not write this letter. He did not sign this letter. And that's why the president's external legal team is aggressively pursuing litigation against the Wall Street Journal, and they will continue to. Christian.
So I guess now her moral conscience attack has lifted since she's back to wearing the cross around her neck while she lies to the pedophiles, right? From the Wall Street Journal article, there's a photo of Jeffrey Epstein with the giant novelty check implying Trump sold him a woman for $22,500. So we covered this last time, but we didn't have the image. The image kind of broke while we were on the air. So there it is. There's the check. Jeffrey Epstein holding that big check with the name Trump on the endorsee square. Jeffrey showing early talents with money and women, sells fully depreciated, name of woman, to Donald Trump for $22,500. Showed early people skills too. Even though I handled the deal, I didn't get any of the money or the girl. There you go. There you go. A fully depreciated woman. Now, we said this in the last clip, but I do have to remind you that it's been a common accounting of this Epstein case that Epstein would have sex with these women when they were underage, which is, of course, a crime. And then when they became of age, he would pass them off to his friends. And so that is where I fear that fully depreciated phrase comes from. Carolyn Levitt asked about this, and look what she has to say.
Thanks, Caroline. One of the other documents released by the House Oversight Committee contained a photo of Jeffrey Epstein holding an oversized check that was made out to him in the check from the president for $22,000 for a fully depreciated woman. I wondered if the president has any recollection of that, or what you guys make of that photo that was included in those documents.
Did you see the signature on that check? It is not Donald Trump's signature. It is absolutely not. The president did not sign that check.
But does he recognize the woman?
Okay, well, talk about a red herring. Oh, he didn't sign the
Oh,
check.
well, I guess that's that.
I guess that's that. Look at the signature. Look at the signature. Not denying the context. Just saying, yeah, no, he didn't sign that either. That's not his signature. This is their go-to. This is what they have debased themselves to. This is why we talk about these influencers, right? We talk about these people who run on a family values brand, run on a huge part of their appeal was that it was them versus the godless hedonist pedos. And here they are just so shamelessly covering up this operation. There she is, the big cross around her neck. Like, there's just no shame whatsoever. Got this fucking picture. Imagine this in any other context. Imagine a Democrat had this surrounding themselves for a fully depreciated woman.
Yep.
Really shameless. Really, really unbelievable.
Yeah, and this is why you can't. I mean, this should be a bare minimum. This should be a bare minimum for you. Anyone that you follow who's backing Trump's play on this, just deny it. Never happened. Not his signature. immediately you cannot trust what they say about anything.
Charlie Kirk was saying this 2 days ago. We covered.
Sure,
we used his tweet in the last thing. Yeah.
Oh, yes. He was absolutely one of the people grifting off of this kind of, cultural outrage porn, which they ran into a big snag here. I mean, it's an incredibly audacious gambit they're pulling that, probably the foundational myth, not meaning it's false, but the, core mythology of MAGA is that there are these, the load-bearing myth of MAGA is that there are these, there are these, global elite fans of the playground secretly running the world. I mean, that's core to their identity. And then it gets revealed so quickly that Trump has more credible evidence against him as being part of that than just about anyone you ever accused of this.
Yes.
What do they
more than
do?
Clinton at this point?
More than Clinton. More than Clinton. What do? You got to deny it. You can't admit it. You can't admit it. Then what are you going to talk about? What are you going to talk about? And not only that, remember, man, just like we just saw with the Taylor Lorenz thing, that all these Democrats get paid. And what was their defense? Well, the other side does it, and they're not wrong about that. They do. You think these people don't get paid? They get. You look at so much of the discourse, and it really is people are hypnotized. They are. They're just hypnotized into investing in subjects that have nothing to do with them, investing in debates that are not in any way going to improve their lives. Like, it's just constant economy of distraction in order to sell advertising on these platforms and the people who are willing to be the pitch man for the ads.
Exactly. All right, we'll move right on along here. Kuznetsky Bassane says this might help offset the recent unsubscribers. Not necessary, Kuznetsky, but thank you very much. We do not care about that here, as you know. You've been with us long enough.
Yeah.
Israel did 7-Eleven. Thank you, Virtuoso. Virtuoso's an OG. He's an old time.
Yeah, he's been with us for a long time.
Mona Mandraccia, thank you for becoming a YouTube member. Appreciate that very much. Mike Huckabee, I like that. Mike Huckabee, I like that play on words. Bending the waist, I mean knee. Thank you for that. What's one more dead journalist for Israel's cause? That's another good point. You're talking about a country that, has killed almost 300 journalists in the past couple of years. The show Cops was about displaying how the state treats the poor. Yes, absolutely, 100%. I agree with that. DD seems to have caught a bad case of MTDS. Thank you. We don't listen. I don't even dislike the guy, man. Like we don't. We
think he's funny.
He's funny. He's a character. He's a character. Like that. Right. He is like a character out of an old cartoon or a comic strip. Like, yeah, man. He's entertaining. That guy is not boring. I'll say that. All right, we can move right on along.
Yeah, like he's too. It's like disliking the Three Stooges for violence.
Yeah, it's like disliking Andy Kaufman.
Like, yeah, exactly. It's just he's too much of a character to dislike.
Right.
He's in its category of his own. Really.
Yes. He marches to the beat of his own drum. I'm seeing well-rehearsed MSM news interviews where they're begging for checkpoints. There were no checkpoints. Mark Dansky, Greater Israel includes Orem, Utah, apparently. Yeah, good point. This obviously the work of female blue-haired leftist from Portland who is a vegetarian who protests hunters and guns. Yeah, exactly. Good point. Thank you. Judy Denmark says, you guys have done an amazing job on the Charlie Kirk story. Fascinating and insightful, and Keaton spoke so movingly that I had to grab the Kleenex. Well, thank you, Judy. Appreciate that. Appreciate those kind words from the civilized world, from Denmark, from the civilized world, a dispatch from civilization.
I mean, it's really those monologues that get us the 14%.
Yeah, right. That's what pulls in the 14%. Exactly, yeah. No way Trump didn't know about the strike. The tweet was deliberate bait. Eric Rousseau, the wall is good. Feels like a flat-ass white woman. Thank you, Eric Rousseau. Appreciate that input. All right, let's Monkey Rotary. Russ, are you saying Trump is not in charge of ordering the McDonald's lunch? Haha, thank you, Monkey Rotary. Appreciate that. All right. We will continue on along. I got to do the scroll after this one. Okay. All right. Go ahead.
All right. So Kamala has been biding her time, waiting for her political rehabilitation and showing that even this reemergence of Donald Trump into the presidency is not going to make people like Jeffrey Goldberg reconsider their politics. We're gonna bring out Marquis Dudabular voice here for this one because it's appropriate. So this is what he has to say about this, and you be the judge of if he's right in his analysis. The biggest surprise in Kamala Harris's forthcoming account of her rough and ready, intense, and absurdly condensed campaign for president, 107 days, may be that it is filled with surprises. I read it last week, expecting loyally calibration and discretion. This careful Harris is present, but so too is another Harris. Blunt, knowing, fervent, occasionally profane, slyly funny. As you will see in the following excerpt and throughout this newsworthy book, she no longer seems particularly interested in holding back. Yeah. So, if you listen to just the few paragraphs we're going to pull, it's a typically self-justifying load of horseshit. I don't understand why people like Jeffrey Goldberg are so desperate to make Kamala Harris happen. You know how I heard about Kamala Harris for the first time? This is how these networks work. I was debating a Hillbot after 2016 about, predictably how they should have gone with Bernie. And he said, well, Hillary was the first. She was the trailblazer. I don't think Kamala will have the same problem. I'd never even heard of her. That is how much the media was already programming the libs to get behind this woman. That years before most people have had outside of California knew who Kamala Harris was. The libs were already being programmed to anoint her as the next candidate. I think they love the idea of Kamala Harris. They just want to feel virtuous by supporting this professional class neoliberal kind of black woman. It's the neoliberal success story. It's, you made it through merit and the meritocracy, and it's working as long as people like Kamala Harris can be president. There's nothing wrong with the system. I think that's part of why they're so fixated on somebody who clearly has no talent, clearly has no political talent. So this is a very transparent attempt to rehabilitate herself and to get people like Jeffrey Goldberg to write things like that about her. So this is her describing her experience of watching Biden's resignation speech after the debate.
So this is a leaked excerpt, or not leaked, but released.
No, it's
from her new book, right?
From her new book, yes. Yeah. I watched it at the hotel that night. It was a good speech. No, it wasn't. Drawing on the history of the presidency to locate his own place within it. Yeah. And Thomas Jefferson, he said that other thing, and also and so I'm out of here, guys. Okay. Pelosi's gonna fucking beat the shit out of me again.
Screw you guys. I'm going home.
Yeah, it was brilliant. But see, this is what she's doing through the whole thing, which is very sociopathic. And that's how I've always diagnosed her. She can't completely throw him under the bus because then that reflects on her. But she needs to throw him under the bus to rehabilitate herself. So she's trying to throw him under the bus without looking like she's throwing him under the bus. And at the same time, to claim the most narcissistic kinds of grievances that you can imagine. Drawing on the history of the presidency to locate his own place within it. But as my staff later pointed out, it was almost 9 minutes into the 11-minute address before he mentioned moi, before he mentioned me. Quote, I want to thank our great Vice President Kamala Harris. She's experienced at times, she's capable, very incredible part of me and the leader of the country. And that was it. How dare he? Yeah. How dare he? He was such an asset to the team. Why would he not want to spend more time talking about her and drawing attention to her? I am a loyal person. During all those months of growing panic, should I have told Joe to consider not running? Perhaps. But the American people had chosen him before in the same matchup. Maybe he was right to believe that they would do so again. Translation: they got away with foisting this sundowning old racist on the American public once. Maybe they could get away with it a second time.
Right.
So there's a little bit of that speech, and you tell me if she had a right to come away slighted.
Just a few months, the American people will choose the course of America's future. I made my choice. I made my views known. I would like to thank our great Vice President Kamala Harris. She's experienced, she's tough, she's capable. She's been an incredible partner to me.
It's too late, buddy. She already lost. She's capable.
Now the choice is up to you, the American people. When you make that choice, remember the words of Benjamin Franklin hanging on my wall here in the Oval Office.
He endorses her for president.
Alongside the busts of Dr. King and Rosa Parks and Cesar Chavez.
Chavez. Okay, all right. So listen, he glazed you about as much as you deserve, having been the epic liability to the administration that you ended up being. What more do you want from this guy? To have the sheer balls to put that in the book, that he didn't mention her soon enough. Wow. But that's Harris, man. That's Harris. Many people want to spin up a narrative of some big conspiracy at the White House to hide Joe Biden's infirmity. Here is the truth as I lived it. Joe Biden was a smart guy with long experience and deep conviction, able to discharge the duties of president. On his worst day, he was more deeply knowledgeable, more capable of exercising judgment, and far more compassionate than Donald Trump on his best translation, but Trump. But at 81, Joe got tired. That's when his age showed in physical and verbal stumbles. I don't think it's any surprise that the debate debacle happened right after 2 back-to-back trips to Europe and a flight to the West Coast for a Hollywood fundraiser. I don't believe it was incapacity. If I believed that, I would have said so. Oh, sure you would have. As loyal as I am to President Biden, I am more loyal to my country. Okay, well, speaking of loyal, there was somebody who attended a fundraiser with him. His name was George Clooney. And a more MSNBC indoctrinated good soldier to the Democratic Party lib than George Clooney you're not going to find on this earth. So let's see a little clip from that fundraiser there, pretty famous one, where Obama had to walk him off the stage.
Oh, you got to kill the sound.
Right.
There you go.
I meant to. Yeah, okay. All right. Let's go back a little bit. He freezes up there. Is I wish Obama hadn't done that. He might still be there.
Just leave him there.
Yeah, how long would that have taken?
Yeah.
Before he decided on his own to get off that stage. All right. So what Kamala is saying is working intimately with this guy. She never saw what had been obvious even before the election in 2019. They only got away with foisting him on the public because of COVID, because they were able to run a basement campaign, and because Donald Trump is running around wiping his balls with every N95 mask that comes his way, scaring the living shit out of the public. That's the only reason he won. I have no doubt in my mind if Donald Trump had just been like, yeah, if you're not feeling well, wear a mask, Biden never would have been president.
Right.
We've done a second term. Okay. This was so bad. George Clooney wrote this. It's devastating to say it, but the Joe Biden I was with 3 weeks ago at the fundraiser was not the Joe big effing deal Biden of 2010. He wasn't even the Joe Biden of 2020. He was the same man we all witnessed at the debate. There can be absolutely no question about George Clooney's blind loyalty to the Democratic Party, to Joe Biden. He says very nice things about Joe Biden that I would not agree with in that article. Kamala Harris would have you believe that she never saw any evidence of what George Clooney, I think we could safely say, is not making this up, saw at one fundraiser in 4 years, 5 years if you include campaigning with him. Never saw any evidence of this. But she has to say this. See, this is the needle she's trying to thread. On the one hand, she's saying, yeah, he was old, he got tired. But she can't admit, yes, I saw that he was mentally incompetent, because that's it. That's game over. You cannot admit that you saw the president needed to be 19th Amendmented and you didn't tell anybody about it. Right. So she would have you believe, nah, he was fine, except when he would get tired, he'd stumble on his words a little. I think we can safely say that that's total bullshit. Now this is the topper for me, because I have followed her staff turnovers pretty closely over the years. I think I've reported on it at least twice. I often learned that the president's staff was adding fuel to negative narratives that sprang up around me. One narrative that took a stubborn hold was that I had a chaotic office and unusually high staff turnover during my first year. The plain fact is many people who come to work with a new administration in the White House haven't done it before. It's a job unlike any other. And not every person, no matter how talented in their former position, can step up into such a high-stress, round-the-clock role. Others find they just don't want a job that doesn't pay particularly well, takes a massive toll on family, and rules out anything resembling a normal life. I'm not going to keep people on who can't thrive in their jobs. It's not fair to them, and it's not good for the country. Now keep in mind, this comes after a litany of all of her great accomplishments as vice president that she really blames the Biden White House for not promoting and not drawing more attention to. So she would have you believe, and here she blames the Biden administration and their staff for spreading false rumors that her office was unusually dysfunctional. And she kind of blames the people in the office themselves for not being able to handle the job. Nonetheless, if you look back over many years before she was ever the vice president, there's a long pattern of people who work in her office describing something that's a cross between a Saw movie and something from the Hostel franchise. So this guy, Terry McGeeter, he's from a Democrat family in San Francisco, which is presumably how he got his son an internship in Harris's AG office. This is his description of his son's experience. Senator Harris vocally throws around F-bombs and other profanity constantly in her berating of staff and others. The staff is in complete fear of her, and she uses her profanity throughout the day. As Attorney General, Senator Harris instructed her entire staff to stand every morning as she entered the office and say, "Good morning, General." Never once during the month-long internship did Harris introduce herself to our son, as he was only in an office with 20 paid employees, and staff was too intimidated by her to introduce him. The only acknowledgement was a form letter of thanks signed by Harris given to him on his last day of service. Gregory was also given instructions to never address Harris nor look her in the eye, as that privilege was only allowed to senior staff members. Now, okay, if you take that in isolation, who knows, right? He said, she said, who knows? But 2019, there is a mass exodus of staff from her campaign, and her state coordinator writes an open letter in which she still says she believes Kamala Harris is the best person to be the next president. And nonetheless saying, this is my third presidential campaign, and I have never seen an organization treat its staff so poorly. This is Kelly Mellenbacher. wrote, strongly criticizing campaign manager Ron Rodriguez and campaign chairwoman Maya Harris, the candidate's sister. With less than 90 days until Iowa, we still do not have a real plan to win, the resigning campaign official warned. And of course, we know how that turned out. Shouldn't even make it to Iowa. 2021, again, mass staff exodus from her office, including Simone Sanders, who had defended her about a month before she resigned when other staff was resigning. A Kamala Harris staff exodus reignites questions about her leadership style. There's just one quote from this article from WAPO. Staffers who worked for Harris before she was vice president said one consistent problem was that Harris would refuse to wade into briefing materials prepared by staff members, then berate employees when she appeared unprepared. Quote, it's clear that you're not working with somebody who is willing to do the prep and the work, one former staffer said. With Kamala, you have to put up with a constant amount of soul-destroying criticism and also her own lack of confidence. So you're constantly sort of propping up a bully, and it's not really clear why. Now, isn't that interesting that in her self-justifying book here, she blames the staff for their own firing? Very consistent with what they're describing here, that she blames the people around her for her own lack of preparation. So let's take a look. She's saying there's nothing unusual about this. People get to the White House. It's the big leagues, they can't handle the pressure. 91.5% staff turnover among initial hires between January 2021 and March 2024. This is exceptionally high, especially for senior level staff. Mike Pence's office, from publicly available reports, do not indicate a comparable high volume turnover in Vice President Pence's office. By comparison, analysis of all Senate confirmed political appointees showed that President Biden's administration had significantly lower turnover at 9% than predecessors like Donald Trump at 24%, Barack Obama at 20%, and George W. Bush as 30% over their first 4 years. So it's not even as if this is a Biden administration problem. In fact, he had very unusually low turnover, even relative to his old boss, Barack Obama, that everyone supposedly loved so much. So this is specifically Kamala Harris's office. This was not going on anywhere else in the administration, as far as we can tell, only in her office. But she would have you believe that these were smears being directed at her by Biden's staff and, weak-kneed staff people who just couldn't take the heat. Now, again, any one of these things by themselves, politics is a rough game. People talk shit. When you put it all together, and this for me is the cherry on the whipped cream, Sean O'Brien talking about how she conducted herself when she came in to answer questions from the Teamsters.
Table, so she comes to the round table. Same format, same questions. Rank and file members are asking her questions just like they asked every other candidate. And they were trying to negotiate with us. She only wants to answer 3 questions. We're like, there's 16 questions here. So she answers 3 of them. And on the 4th question, one of her operatives or one of her staff slips a note in front of me. This will be the last question. And it was 20 minutes earlier than the time that it was going to end.
Come on.
100%. And so, you're there trying to get our support. And her declaration on the way out was, I'm going to win with you or without you.
She thought that or said it out loud?
She said it out loud.
That's insane.
So
that's crazy behavior, actually, if you think about it.
It was insane behavior, which at that point in time, I knew she was going to lose.
Okay. All right. So you have a pattern of not just people like Sean O'Brien, who might not be friendly to the party at this point. You have party loyalists, campaign staff, people who joined Kamala's campaign thinking the best of her, will all walk away talking about her as this monstrous, abusive narcissist. There are just too many of these stories for it to have no truth to it. And the proof is in the pudding, man. Look at that staff turnover compared to other areas of the Biden administration. I have said from the beginning of being aware of her politically, she's not well. There's something wrong with that woman. When you watch that video of her laughing about locking up parents for truth, lock them up. Yeah, she's a sick, sick woman. She is a sick woman. You look at this book, I've read a lot of political memoirs. It's pretty amazing that Goldberg set it up that way. And it's funny. They would say that about Hillary's self-justifying books too. Oh yeah, she's witty and profane in ways you don't expect. No, she's not.
No.
This is a typical politician's everything I ever did was right. And anything bad you heard were mean people who are dumb and jealous and spiteful and motivated by bad motives, being mean to me. That's every political memoir pretty much that you'll ever read. I mean, just from what we've seen there. To me, the bigger story almost, this is completely consistent with the piece of shit Kamala has always been. Jeffrey Goldberg's still trying to play this game, which tells you, I'm sure that's not in isolation. They are dying to use this book as a pretext to rehabilitate Kamala Harris. They're dying to help her do this, to redefine her. Yeah, it wasn't her fault. She was stuck with the sundowning old man. And, she's being loyal, but we all know that she got really put into a terrible position by the administration. They're dying to recraft her image that way. It's not going to work. It's not going to work. It's ridiculous. You read that paragraph from Jeffrey Goldberg, it feels like you're back in 2016. It feels just so out of tune with this moment. You really think people are going to buy that? Oh, this is a new Kamala Harris. Not a new Kamala. This is the typical Kamala Harris. This is the Kamala Harris we've always seen, trying to be on every side that will allow her to come off as much better than she actually is, and to avoid responsibility for things she's actually done.
Right. Yeah. No. Absolutely. And it's funny because the very ascension of hers to the vice presidency is a product of the ideology that ended up turning enough people off to the point where Donald Trump won again. And I never joined the chorus of people calling her a DEI hire because of this sort of overtly racist connotations of that. The way, yes, I mean the MAGA Chud verse did substitute the N-word for DEI. That was their intention. So I never went as far as to do that. But the very promise that Joe Biden felt compelled to make, I will pick a woman as vice president, right? The fact that he had to say that in order for enough of the libs to jump on board. Well, right there, that limits your options. Right. Going into a very critical choice of who your vice president's going to be if you are Joe Biden losing your mind in 2020, probably with prostate cancer in 2020, understanding that who you pick as vice president is critically important. Well, by promising it has to be a woman, well, right there you're limiting your options down. Who's it going to be? Stacey Abrams, Gretchen Whitmer, or Kamala Harris? Those are basically his three choices. It wasn't going to be Warren, as much as she embarrassed herself trying to get on that VP shortlist. Okay, so these are the fruits of that, right? These are the fruits of that ideology that representation trumps everything else no matter what, right? So no, she never had a chance to win. If they had an open primary going in to 2024, she'd have been the favorite. But given the fact that she was the favorite going into 2020 and she blew it, there's a good chance she wouldn't have ended up being the nominee in 2024. Of course, she is correct, as everybody who was saying at the time was correct, to say that Joe Biden should have dropped out. Someone who tweeted this article out saying, had Biden announced in early 2023 he was not seeking re-election, the whole history of things could have been very different. And yes, it could have been very different.
There would have been a primary.
Yes, and it could have been her,
and
but it may not have been her.
I don't think so.
No, because she just sucks too hard.
Yes. She's so lacking in talent.
Yeah.
And the Democratic base was so terrified of losing.
Right.
I don't think they would have chosen her. You know what's funny, though? In their idiocy, I could see them, given those choices, having gone for Buttigieg and losing anyway.
Well, here's where I think Obama may have played a role. Don't forget, Obama wanted Mark Kelly. Obama could have endorsed someone who wasn't Kamala Harris. He could have endorsed a Mark Kelly type or an Andy Bashir type, one of these white bread normies who probably would have beaten Trump probably would have beaten Trump.
Sure.
So yeah, that all could have been different were Biden not the egomaniacal slimeball that he is. And one thing that always jumps out to me when these stories come out is how little love there is for Joe Biden. He is not getting he's not even getting the Jimmy Carter treatment, which was, good guy, failed president. No, they fucking hate him, and they make it known as often as they can, as they should, as everyone should. It was a complete disaster that paved the way for what looks to be an even bigger one. But yeah, the idea that she's going to rewrite history into thinking it could have been her, no, it's never going to be you. Sorry, never going to be you. Could be a perfume influencer or something like that. Go do that. There's a future for you there. Okay. All right, folks. Hey, if you like what we're doing here and you want to help us keep the ship afloat, the best way to do it is to become a member, and you can do so by going to dudissidents.com/Patreon, Substack, or Locals. Membership starts at $5 a month. You get Film Club live streams as part of the membership. You also get post-game live streams once a month. We do an extended show for members only with a Q&A call-in afterwards. You also get call-in access to all of our Q&As, which happen every Sunday night over on Rumble. This Sunday, we got a good show. We got Anthony Aguilar, the Green Beret, coming on the show on Sunday, so that should be great. You also get ad-free replays of every live stream emailed to your inbox the day after they air live. So if you miss a show and you want to watch it back free of ad interruption, you get those emailed to your inbox the day after they stream live. All that for just $5 a month. Or if you sign up at Substack or Locals, you can get $50 for the year, which gets you 2 months for free. But we definitely rely on membership to keep the ship afloat here, and so thank you all very much for your support. Brent Yoendo says, concerning Charlie and the timing, rewatch Mossad 60 Minutes segment, then again and again, start wars through deceit and trickery. Yep. Gareth Richmond, me and the missus really appreciate all the great work you two. Thanks. It's very much appreciated.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now they just apprehend. They haven't apprehended a suspect. They're saying that there was some trans language and anti-fascist language written on the gun, which again, that could mean what it means on the face of it. That could be a plan, an op. I mean, if Israel was behind it, that's what they would write to make it look like it was something else. What are they going to write on the gun? These pretzels are making me thirsty. No, they're going to write. Something to make it look like it was something else.
That would point everyone right back at Seinfeld.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Eric Elmore says, I have long admired the thoughtfulness and intellect you two bring to your audience, particularly the personal authenticity and emotion that accompanies your analysis. Keaton's beautiful opening monologue is a perfect example. Well, thank you, Eric. Appreciate that very much.
Look at that.
Appreciate that. Surprise, Alex Jones doesn't buy that it's a hit job or Israel was involved. It's trans rage. Love you guys, and so appreciate your work. Yeah, I got to catch up on what's going on after the show. Was stuck prepping this, so I'm a couple hours behind, as they say. Michael Tracy was a drawing of an egg smuggler. Egg prices are high. Nothing burger. Yeah, right. Yeah, it's an egg smuggler. I like that one. Good one, Andy Gardner. The small tits are eggs hidden in this shirt. That's what I think he was going for there. Never forget George W. Bush, Dick Cheney, Barack Obama, and Hillary Clinton should all be in prison. 9/11/01, 9/12, free Palestine. Thank you, Michael Castillo. 9/11/12. You talked about the Benghazi thing. All right, here we go. Chuck Bach says the humanity Keaton expressed at the start was moving even to a 65-year-old with a 34-year-old son. Well, thank you. Glad both are here with your introspective, informed, and humanitarian voices as we move through this time. Well, thank you. That's very kind of you to say. Chipmunk. It's a picture of a chipmunk. Bloomberg just obtained Jeffrey's emails. He and Maxwell discussed recruiting teen girls, buying gifts like a $70K car for Dershowitz, and him and Maxwell doing a fertility treatment. Interesting read. Oh, wow. We'll
are you serious?
Yeah, that's interesting.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we'll have to cover that on Sunday. Chuck Box says, bad news, Keaton. That feeling of the heart beating outside your body never goes away. I imagine it does not. Thank you, Chuck. Appreciate that. Kids just got home, so let me see. My children just got home. They survived another day at school.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see here. Stoop sign, fuck the wall, always reminds me of the episode of Taboo where a woman was in love with the Berlin Wall. She hugged the wall and got to spend the night in her lover's watchtower with attempted spooning. Thank you. We can fund the southern border Trump wall by making it a religious fuck wall. Yeah, there we go. Yeah. Good one. Eric EO Shush says, I'm getting to the point if Israel does 3 to 4, 5 more missile strikes on peace negotiators, I just might think they don't want peace. Yeah, exactly. Devanes, thanks for the $5. Say, I disagree with Russell more because he seems really anti-gun. I don't think he's more
No,
gun than
no, that's not what it is.
same page.
I'm anti-hypocrisy.
Right. Right. And anti-maniacs murdering people, maybe. In my state and other high schools have shooting clubs and train for the Olympics. Keaton, I need more rants. Love you too.
Yeah, dude. If I move to a place where you can have guns, I would have a gun. Like I'm not anti-gun. Look, I think it's something like 90% of people think there should be a mental health provision, and you can't get that passed.
Right.
Does that make sense to you?
Right.
Come on.
Exactly.
And I gotta say, you could go back if you really want to do that kind of digging. I have expressed sympathy for the idea of an armed population in order to make a tyrannical government think twice. Recent events have demonstrated that's far more in theory than in practice, because the people most likely to believe that are least likely to do it.
Yes. Do you guys think Israel will succeed in people just forgetting their atrocities when this is over? No.
Yes.
No.
Oh, do I think they will? I think they think they will.
They think they will.
I don't think so. Yes.
I don't think they
that's
will.
I think that's their whole theory of the case.
That's their plan.
Yeah.
China Shill, Christian eschatology says that Israel needs to destroy the Al-Aqsa Mosque, yes, and be attacked on all sides by the nations of Gog and Magog, and then their savior comes back, and then there we go. Thank you, China Shill. You guys are my second favorite pair of DDs. Thank you very much. Thank you, Get Up King. Appreciate that. Sammy Zitro says, I don't agree with some of the stuff Charlie Kirk said, but at least he was trying to keep the door open. Russell's China Shill says, Russell's boomer put a huge smile on my face. Thanks. There we go. That's what we're here for, China Shill. Appreciate that. Russell's boomer, how much do you have to pay to get that service? Yeah, I think he meant Russell's boomer rant. But thank you, Nocturnal Human. Appreciate that. Killer Hitton says, I hate almost every single thing about the Planet Earth project, but I love you two dirtbags. Definitely not in a gay way, though, unless you guys are interested. Are you interested? Ha, good one, Killer Hitton. Thank you. Michael Tracy has MTDS. Thank you, Vanguard Van. Appreciate that. Okay, folks, we got one more segment on the day before we say farewell for the weekend. And then a big week next week, in case you missed the announcement. We are hosting the Jimmy Dore Show Monday and Wednesday of next week. So you'll be seeing a whole lot of us next week. All right, well, we got one more, and it is about our friend Jerry Seinfeld.
Yes, friend of show Jerry Seinfeld. So you might remember that, God bless him, a lot of the kids at the graduation ceremony at Duke University last year walked out when it was announced that Jerry Seinfeld would be a speaker.
Jerry is also serving as our commencement speaker today. So, what's the big deal about our commencement speaker?
Good for them. This is May 12th, 2024. Graduating students walked out of Duke University commencement to protest Zionist speaker Jerry Seinfeld and to call attention to the ongoing genocide of Gaza. The students then held their own alternative commencement on the quad. Good for them. So Seinfeld is back to wreak havoc and terror on the Duke University students. Jerry Seinfeld says people who say free Palestine are worse than the Ku Klux Klan. Now, this should not be any surprise to see Jerry Seinfeld connecting pro-Zionism to anti-Semitism. That's kind of his stock in trade. He recently did it at a concert in Australia, in which he gleefully anticipated the protesters being punched.
Do you hear how well I'm doing? This is what you want. You want to do well like I am. Look at the people here to hear me. Look at what happened to you. Here's the other thing I think you need to go back and tell who's ever running your organization. We just gave more money to a Jew. That cannot be a good plan for you. That's not what you want. That's the whole problem. You got to come up with a better plan.
These are the jokes, people. Do me a favor, read one super chat. I forgot these videos weren't loaded in.
Okay.
I got most of them. I just got to grab one.
All right. What else we got over here? Vanguard Van says, thank you, Keaton, for being a shining example of empathy for the world's innocent children. If we lack empathy for Charlie Kirk, we become Charlie Kirk. We must be better empathy for all. Thank you. I don't necessarily have empathy for him so much as his family. Just to clarify.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He made that pretty clear.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like, he's not a good man. I'm not trying to whitewash Charlie Kirk.
No. Okay, and we are back. So if that wasn't enough, Jerry Seinfeld has gone to yes, this is really a thing, IDF fantasy camp and brought the kids. Jerry Seinfeld at Caliber 3, an IDF terror camp for chuds like him to role play killing Palestinians. Group packages are available, which is good since he's there with his kids. For everyone ages 4 and up, under 16 uses a paintball gun. The 360 shoot house is an extra charge. So this is their actual advertising material. The IDF shooting adventure is an exciting, one-of-a-kind program that puts you, your family, and friends in the boots of a combat soldier for 2 hours through live demonstrations, training, shooting, and learning about the most moral army in the world, the soul of Israel.
The most moral army in the world. Yeah, I don't know if there are for-profit fantasy camps about the most moral army in the world.
Probably not. Adults and children train side by side, making this a fun activity for the whole family. You really can't make this shit up.
No.
We also offer an option for
Christ.
people who want to watch the demonstrations without participating in the shooting instructions. Dude, like, how can you run around arguing that everyone who critiques your politics is a hater or hateful or murderous or genocidal when you would pay to bring your children to a place that celebrates what in the end is the slaughter of people? Like, you want to say this is what they have to do to survive. Obviously, I don't agree with that. But any way you slice it, you're celebrating murder, right? And you're bringing your kids to that. And then you're going to play the victim on stage. Like, people who protest that are, by definition, anti-Semites. So
they also, sorry to stop it, they charge $30 per spectator. So they charge you to watch.
Yeah.
They charge you to watch. That nothing says Jewish army like charging people to watch. You know, you go to Coney Island, it's like, what is it, $15 to ride the Cyclone? You can watch the Cyclone for free. They don't charge you to watch.
Well, they charge you to go to the synagogue.
Yeah.
To get the good seats in the synagogue, you have to pay for it. Now, you want to be fair, they don't generally do the collection plate thing, so that's how they get their money. But still, introducing that kind of classism into religious worship, that literally, like a Broadway show, you pay more, you get closer.
Oh, I think that was a Curb Your Enthusiasm where they're scalping tickets to the synagogue.
Right.
I got row C. Yeah.
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 God is in the Torah if you're not close to the Torah. So this is some video of this fantasy camp that he went to. I ran it.
The enemy.
Experience a suicide bombing in a Jerusalem market and a stabbing attack. Military tourism in Israel is a booming industry. These camps are mainly located in occupied Palestinian territories. Between 15 and 25,000 tourists visit these facilities each year. A majority of them are American Jews. Other tourists include Chinese and Brazilian nationals. Yeah, pretty sick shit.
Yeah, that's true. They have the Michael Tracy Epstein denial exhibit now through November 1st. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so get there quick.
Yeah.
Get there quick while that's still there. All right, so he's been he's kind of been trolled a few times on the street. Here's a couple of those.
Selfie? Sure. Free Palestine! I don't care about Palestine. That's sad.
I don't care about Palestine. Here was another case about a month after that. This was in April, the first one. This one's May.
Fuck you, Jerry Seinfeld! Free Palestine! You support the genocide of babies in Gaza! Free
Only
Palestine! You. Free Palestine! Fuck you, Jerry Seinfeld! You support the genocide of Palestinian children! You rabid fucking dog! Free Palestine! Free Palestine!
He thinks it's funny. He thinks it's hilarious. Also, his wife and Bill Ackman, if you remember those protesters who attacked the pro-Palestine protests at UCLA, they were being funded by Jerry Seinfeld's wife, Jessica Seinfeld, with Bill Ackman. They've been funding counter-protest groups at campuses all over the country. So back to the article. Seinfeld spoke at Duke University in Durham, North Carolina, to introduce a former Israeli hostage, Omer Shem Tov, when he made the remarks, according to the university's student newspaper, the Duke Chronicle. Quote, by saying free Palestine, you're not admitting what you really think. So it's actually, compared to the Ku Klux Klan, I'm actually thinking the Klan is actually a little bit better here because they can come right out and say, we don't like blacks. We don't like Jews. Okay, that's honest. The Chronicle reported Seinfeld said. Representatives for Seinfeld did not immediately respond to a request for comment. A spokesperson for Duke University said in a statement that the school does not preview remarks of speakers who are invited to campus and that an invitation does not imply any endorsement of their remarks. The student group, quote, the student group Chabad at Duke was the lead organizer of Tuesday's event and invited by the speakers. Omer Shem Tov was introduced by Jerry Seinfeld, who requested his appearance not be announced beforehand, given Omer Shem Tov's spiritual journey during captivity was the focus of the event. You know, I realize maybe throwing children into dungeons in Israel for throwing rock, maybe that is what led me to be tortured in a tunnel under the Gaza Strip. Get out of here! Get out of here. Throw tomatoes. Mason Herman, a Duke student and president of the Chabad student group, told NBC News that neither the organization nor the university are responsible for remarks made by an invited speaker. Quote, this event was highlighting the fact that there are more than 40 hostages still in Gaza, Herman said. To one, raise awareness of that fact, and two, to share their plight while in captivity and to share Omer's story. Shem Tov, 22, was taken hostage at the Nova Music Festival in Israel on October 7, 2023, and was not released by Hamas until February in a ceasefire agreement. I really want to do a sketch where Nazis go to listen to chamber music outside Auschwitz. So, you know, all of these Zionists have an interesting thing in common. They have an interesting thing in common. I wonder if you can guess what it is. They're all fans of the playground. It's very weird how so many people who are Zionist also like to go out with children. It's very weird. This is here a reminder that Jerry Seinfeld is a fan of the playground who dated a 17-year-old child when he was 38. He broke up with her because they were getting too much attention from the press. And this person claims to have been in her class. When I was in high school, 38-year-old Jerry Seinfeld was dating a girl in my year, and he picked her up from class during fourth period, and she got to skip Mr. Solinsky's calculus exam. I got a 93. Still remembers the score. This is pretty funny. 50 Shades of Way posted this. Jerry Seinfeld dating a girl less than half his age should have been the end of his career. Yeah, you think? So this is pretty funny.
Talking to you, but I gotta run. I gotta go to the high school. Oh, to like pick up your kid or kids? No, I'm there to pick up my girlfriend. Obviously, by that you mean you're dating a teacher or a faculty member. Definitely not a student, which would be a minor. Minor? I hardly know her. No, but I am. I'm dating a 17-year-old girl. How old are you? 38. That is heinous. You are more than 2 times her age. You could literally be her dad. You don't get it, all right? She's super mature for her age. We talk about it all the time when she's doing her Algebra 2 homework. So you're like creepy. You're like a shitty person. Hey, watch your language. I'm a clean comic. All of my comedy routine in my entire life has been clean, okay? I don't tolerate that. You are a 40-year-old man dating a child. But sure, you do clean comedy. You're a saint.
Yeah, you notice how if you're a Zionist, you can be forgiven everything. This is the funny thing. Most of these Zionists, most Jewish American Zionists, they're liberal Democrats. Almost to a person, they were all #MeTooing a few years ago. But Jerry Seinfeld, he's a Zionist. He's a Zionist. He supports the IDF. No surprise that he wants to join the world's most moral army. I'll let Bree close it out. Seinfeld shouldn't say anything that Larry David hasn't scripted for him. Yes, agreed. Me and Keaton disagree about that final season. I think it was fucking awful after Larry David left. But yeah, Jerry Seinfeld, who dated a child when he was at the height of his fame. He was at the height. Forget about the age power dynamic. This is when Seinfeld was Seinfeld. And I can tell you in that pre-Me Too time, yeah, it was treated as kind of like amusing, right? Like, did people make a big deal out? Shoshana, oh yeah, Jerry and Shoshana. People just accepted it. Obviously now people have a different perspective on those things, but if you tout the Zionist line, you can have that kind of history and go make your fucking crappy Pop-Tart movie for Netflix, and no problem. No problem. What if Jerry Seinfeld were anti-Zionist? What if he were like a member of Jewish Voice for Peace? I bet you'd hear about this from those people then.
Oh, well, of course. Of course. They went after Glenn Greenwald for a consensual act between 2 adults. They were the ones trying to smear him for that, right? So, of course, if it were this pattern and he were one of their political enemies, of course, they'd sing a different tune. Yeah, no, he always just struck me as the kind of incurious person who just grew up in that ideology and just never bothered questioning it because he just has this like general attitude of nihilism, which is what made the show work. Because in the context of the dating antics of 4 single New Yorkers on the Upper West Side, that was funny. In the context of Israel-Palestine, it's not so funny. It's not so funny. And he's too big-headed at this point to understand that comedically that does not work. That does not work, right? It was somebody asked him at a time. They said, so why do you support Israel? He says, well, I'm Jewish, so if I feel like I should. Like that, like he just doesn't care enough to look into it.
You could tell he's never thought beyond the Zionist indoctrination, which to be fair, look, man, I was thinking about this today. That runs so deep. Generally, I have not dated Jewish women. And of the Jewish women I've dated, I think they all are crazy Zionists now. Like, that is how deep that runs. Like, it's not really the type you would think I would attract. But, like, if you go out with a Jewish woman, chances are at this moment, they're ranting and raving about Palestinians terrorists. It's very weird. It's very
Right.
weird.
Right. All right. Who for fan says no need to throw him under the entire bus. A couple of wheels will do. 3 Tom the Bomb says fear and apathy are not an option. Lenin and Mao gave us the instructions on how to win. The American Communist Party is setting the foundation for the future. ACP.US. You guys are the best. Keep fighting. Thank you, 3 Tom the Bomb. At Duke University, Seinfeld said the Klan is better than people who say free Palestine. Yep, we just said that. At least they are honest about their hate. Yep. Just covered it. I celebrated Jerry Falwell and Rush Limbaugh's death, but Charlie Kirk's death bothered me a great deal. The former left the earth naturally. Brutal murder is unnatural. And just for speech, sickens me. Thank you, Reeton Cussel. 3 Tom the Bomb says, here's the other $5. I think you guys and Jackson Hinkle have had the best takes on the Kirk killing. Thank you for that. I saw some of Jackson's tweets. It's funny. You used to see Jackson's tweets everywhere, and then they kind of disappeared, and then I started seeing them again yesterday. That's kind of weird. If it turns out Israel was involved with the assassination and MAGA finds out, it's over for Israel. MAGA would sooner eat Trump than let that pass. This could be huge. Oh, somebody's ringing the bell here. All the segments are in the can. Shit's going down. Can I book birthday
just
parties?
in time?
Yeah, just in time. Somebody rang the bell and everybody went crazy. Can I book birthday parties at the IDF Genocide Adventureland?
You're making a joke, but I'm sure people do that.
Oh, I'm sure they do. Yeah, I'm sure they do. Professor Brown note, as an avid non-gamer, it seems most are just not mind-numbing military grooming, regarded fantasy, etc. Are there any healthy, educated games about torturing rich people or something? I haven't been a gamer in forever. I mean, I was never a gamer. I played video games casually as a kid. But yeah, I would not know. 265-005.
Yeah, well, that's the problem. You won't get the funding for that game.
That's true. You will not get the funding for that game. I wasn't talking about you, Russ. Come on. Is my syntax that bad? What are you talking about? The Kurt super chat at the beginning? Yeah, no, I know you weren't saying that he fell for it. It's fine. Whatever. It doesn't matter. You're good. You're cool. I don't think any offense was taken. Kuznetsky Bassane says shooter is long gone in Europe or South America by now.
Probably be drinking with that motherfucker in Bangkok.
Yeah. If I have no empathy, if you have no empathy, you are a sociopath, which is what the rich want. They don't want us to care about each other. That's right. Thank you, JD.
Yeah, good point.
Always improving. Israel will get away with it. They will, because people interpret world events as a genuine plot. People aren't ready for a pandemic, too, to hit as planned. Dorian Marquise, Gen Xers remember Jerry's teenage girlfriend.
Yep, I remember.
Seinfeld hates Palestine because it's over 17. Good one. Appreciate that, Kemen. Thank you. Let's see. Best comment of the day. You are not going to convince the right of the gun competency of the libs. Yeah, well, I mean, it's funny, but it's true, right? What do you think? A boomer lib is going to take a shot from 200 yards away through a crowd of people? No, that was a professional job. Who did it? We don't know, but I virtually certain it was a professional job. Ardeen W. missed most of the show. Going to have to rewatch. Thanks for being sensible in your commentary and analysis. Appreciate what you do. Thank you, Ardeen W. Appreciate that very much. China Shell says Metal Gear Solid series is based in Red Pilled game. Highly recommend 2 for AI. I remember the Metal Gear franchise from when I was a kid. I mean, that predates PlayStation, I believe, but I remember playing the first one on PlayStation. Yeah, that's an old franchise, but a very acclaimed one. Pardon me. All right, folks. That is our show. Thank you guys all very much for being here today. We appreciate you all. Thanks to the YouTubers and to the Rumblers and to the mods for keeping the peace in the chat. I know the chat was a little restless early on.
Were they?
Well, if we lost subscribers, they must have been a little restless, right? And I can only surmise.
Not many. It was like 15 or something.
That's fine.
Like an exodus.
It's no worries. All right. Thanks, everybody, for being here. We are off tomorrow and Saturday, and we are back, of course, on Sunday evening at 7 p.m. Oh, I should just make an announcement. So for those of you who follow us, got the newsletter. Misty's show is on hiatus until further notice while she cares for the family there. So we wish all the best to her, and we'll be ready when she is to step back in. So that's the update on that. Thank you guys all very much for spending your afternoon with us. We will see you back here Sunday night and then Tuesday, Thursday. And we are also filling in for our friend Jimmy Dore on Monday and Wednesday. So you'll be seeing plenty of us next week. Until then, thanks very much, everybody, for being here today. Be safe and be well.
Courage!
Please clap.